And ultimately, no, I don't think you're out of touch with reality. I think that what you're doing here is attempting to defend the privileges that you have. The privileges that the state of Israel gives to you and yours by trying to frame people like you as victims of your victims. And it's disgusting.
Very fine despite what the New York Post says. But nobody had seen this coming.
I mean, that's insane, right?
Why is that insane?
I don't even, yeah, okay. Like,
okay.
I don't.
Just criticizing people. You don't have to comment if you're not comfortable about it. I honestly felt at times that he and his audience barely thought of Israelis as humans. This dude just called baby.
Like, you guys saw the clips that I played at the beginning, right? He thinks Palestinians are it.
These militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as well. But there are baby settlers as well. There are babies in the settlements.
Part of running defense for Hamas is...
It's crazy that you would even bring that clip up, given that you support the existence of Israel, which is verifiably a baby killer state. Like, the proportion of babies killed by Israel is obscenely ridiculous. Children in general killed by Israel in Gaza, something like 33%. Babies, something like 15, 25%. Like, you got to be kidding me, Ethan. That's the worst, that's the best that you got?
Downplaying the violence, specifically the sexual violence, which he's done a lot of.
The sexual violence, Ethan. First off, we're going to watch this and we're going to see if he provides any evidence for this supposed sexual violence on October 7th.
Matter if fucking rapes happen on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
What's wrong with that clip?
So that's the other part of this problem that many people can't contend with. Like, the Palestinian resistance is not perfect. They're not, like, so good. They have magical bullets.
Okay, firstly, what he was saying there clearly is that if someone was raped on October 7th, that would not justify the Gaza genocide. That's what he was saying. 2, are you going to provide any evidence of these supposed rapes? Because if not, you're going to get brutalized in a second here.
The Palestinian resistance is not perfect. They're not, like, so good. They have
just rapid fire a bunch of headlines uncritically. Do not provide any analysis of yourself. Just this definitely happened. This definitely 100% happened. Trust me.
The bullet is not perfect.
Witness says, like, just look at this shit. Ethan provides zero analysis. It's not even an attempt to form an argument of this mass rape narrative. This is, by the way, straight up blood libel propaganda against Palestinians. There is no evidence of even one person being raped. Let's see in a second. He's going to move on, not even trying to explain any of this, and I'm just going to play a clip that I already made in the past that debunks this narrative.
Of course, if you compare the raw numbers, Gazans have lost a lot more than his...
So firstly, as I went over earlier, Ethan himself is a denier of actual verified rapes admitted to by the Israeli state. So it's kind of weird that he would claim that someone else is a rape denier by playing a clip where what Hassan actually said is that even if there were rapes on October 7th, that obviously would not justify genocide in Gaza. Do you disagree with that? If anything, Hassan is way too conciliatory because there's no evidence of even a single rape or sexual assault on October 7th, and that is a fact. Again, I'm going to play the clip here of Ethan Klein rape denial, straight up rape denial, based on his feelings.
Frankly, there wasn't much else other than like sporadic, isolated, unconfirmed, kind of nebulous accusations. And I'm not...
That's literally the sort of thing that Ethan is accepting uncritically in terms of October 7th. He's such a fucking little slime ball.
I'm saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying, like, this one article is the only real significant one that I could find.
He got... You can't find anything. You don't even know how to use Google. You're 40 years old and you can't do basic research, and YouTube's your job. Anyway, I'm going to play a clip from a video that I made before, and this is me going over a supposed UN report on rapes on October 7th and the evidence contained within it, which explains precisely how and why there is no evidence of any rapes on October 7th. Because there is little to no evidence that it actually happened. The evidence is incredibly sketchy. All of it comes exclusively from a few, very few, individual witness testimonies, most of which are highly inconsistent with later accountings of the same tale. None of these testimonies corroborate each other. There has never been any forensic evidence presented that corroborates any of them. Many of the people who give these testimonies have intimate links to the Israeli state. For example, they are from organizations like Zakat, which works very intimately with the Israeli state. Other testimonies only surfaced far later as part of carefully timed propaganda blitzes by the Israeli state. To put it simply, there is no evidence whatsoever that these testimonies are not simply made up, and they have been utilized by the Israeli state because they simply have no other corroborating evidence. And this is very weird given that the Israelis have a ton of video footage of October 7th, yet on this one point which their propaganda has been harping on, they have nothing. So yeah, very succinctly, what Ethan actually did there is just like flash a bunch of headlines of these made-up bullshit Israeli witness testimonies with zero corroborating evidence at all, many of which have been inconsistent with later recountings, only cropped up like 6 months later, conveniently when Israel needed them as part of propaganda blitzes because they were spreading this mass rape narrative. And the only reason that I can imagine Ethan Klein is harping on this so much and why he takes so much exception to what Hassan said there, which is that even if there was rape, it would not justify genocide, is that Ethan Klein thinks that if there was rape, it would justify genocide. There's no other reason for him to misconstrue what was being said there so badly and for him to present this debunked mass rape narrative as if it's just self-evidently true without even trying to actually form an argument for it, provide evidence for it. It's fucking ridiculous.
Israelis. 40,000 people have died, and
way more than that.
Neighborhoods have been completely...
They haven't died. They have been massacred by Israel and Israelis. Say it correctly. Now, let's frame this in the correct way. You notice how when he talks about supposed Jewish victims, he says like, these are like just little baby boy Jewish people massacred for no reason aside from their Jewish identity by the equivalent of the Nazis. When he talks about Palestinians, it's like 40,000 people have died. I'm not really sure how they've died. No perpetrator. I'm not going to name any sort of specific perpetrator. They just sort of died, you know. I'm not going to tell you anything about them. Like Palestinians, I don't want to say that. I don't want to imply they were killed for being Palestinian. You notice the difference in framing? It's so clear.
Flattened during this war. And while we should keep their plight at the top of our minds at all time, it also doesn't mean that we should disregard the lives of the Jewish people who are also affected.
He always changes it to Jewish people. He never says Israelis, always Jewish. Very crude, basic emotional manipulation. The point of this is so that you feel that you can't respond to him because he said Jewish, and if you respond to him, you're going to get accused of anti-Semitism, right? Because he's reducing what are ethno-nationalists, settler colonists, to just simple Jewish people, vulnerable little Jewish people, trying to evoke the memory that most people have in their head of what a Jewish person is, which is like someone in a striped jumpsuit in a concentration camp in the Holocaust.
By this, even if their suffering on the whole is not as great. Some of you may know that I'm an Israeli dual.
The suffering as a whole, the suffering on both sides is caused by Israel. Israel does settler colonialism. The settler colonialism causes backlash from its victims. So it's not like the difference here is scale. The difference is not scale. The difference is the whole context. The difference is the violence of the victims versus the violence of the victimizers. And that's what you are leaving out here entirely.
Citizen. My wife is Israeli. My kids are half Israeli. And
the fact that you are an Israeli dual citizen is fucking horrible. This is not something to your credit. This does not make you more credible. This does not make you more sympathetic. You are an American who chose to move to Israel. In Israel, there is a law called the Law of Return that gives automatic citizenship to who they consider to be ethnic or racial Jews, purely on an ethnic basis. So Ethan Klein, as an American, had the right to move to Israel and be given immediate citizenship. Meanwhile, there are millions of Palestinians in Gaza, in West Bank, and all around the world who are actually from the land that Israel is currently occupying. They and their families were expelled from there. Are they allowed to return? No. No, actually, if they tried to return, they would get shot and killed. So Ethan Klein, an American, brings up the fact that he was allowed to return to a land that he has absolutely nothing to do with. And he was happy to go there. He was happy to be granted citizenship on nothing but the basis of ethnicity, to move into land, homes, area, all, you know, this nice little country called Israel that can only exist at the cost of Palestinians. And he was happy to go there and get all the advantages that this affords to him, that the accident of birth of him being Jewish affords to him at the expense of Palestinians. And he brings this up as if it's a positive thing that makes him more credible. It's the exact opposite. That you are someone you weren't even born in Israel. You chose to move there. That makes you less than credible. That means that like anyone analyzing what you have to say should always be on guard and always be incredibly suspicious of your motivations. Because at the end of the day, you are the equivalent of someone who moved from like the USA to Nazi Germany to go and colonize Poland. That is you.
My entire in-law is Israeli. I lived there for 5 years, and I grew a closeness with the country and its people. One of the biggest issues...
If you have an emotional connection to an ethno-state, that's a bad thing about you. You shouldn't think that. That's bad.
Issues between me, Hassan, and his community was that I am in favor of a two-state solution, while they are in favor of a one-state solution. Their theory is that after the October...
So you are in favor of a two-state solution. You are in favor of the existence of Israel. What is Israel? Israel is an ethno-state for one ethnicity that came into being only as the result of the mass expulsion and killing of people who were there beforehand, as much as they thought they could get away with. Therefore, okay, so you support that. you are an ethno-nationalist. You are a Zionist as well, obviously, because that's what Zionism is. And the fact that you want to leave Palestinians with crumbs and keep them out of the land that you and yours stole from them for their own ethnic benefit on an ethnic basis, and try to satiate them by giving them their own, like, Bantustan off to the side or whatever, while they're still barred from returning to their homes and land that you stole from them. Again, on an ethnic basis, in the name of maintaining a Jewish majority and Jewish ethnic privilege in Israel. I don't know how you bring that up so simply like that, like it's nothing. That you're in favor of a two-state solution for on any reason aside from pure pragmatism, like conciliatory pragmatism. Like Norman Finkelstein's position is not like, I think that we should have a Jewish state because we need to maintain a Jewish majority, blah, blah, blah. His position is more, you know, end the suffering of Palestinians at the hands of Israel, try to get like as good a two-state solution as possible to that end. Ethan's position, though, oh man, Ethan's position is basically like the Palestinian enemies cannot be trusted. You know, the people who we expelled, who we've massacred, who we've genocided, they hate us. Ergo, we need to keep excluding them.
7th attack. Israel should just dissolve its borders and let Hamas enter Israel unrestrained.
Borders?
What do you think?
It's so weird how he frames this as like Hamas. Like all Palestinians are Hamas, I guess.
Israel should have
But
done.
like he literally frames like the process of moving towards a one-state solution as if like it would not be a process at all. As if like one day Israel would just like say, okay, we're dissolving our state, it's gone, goodbye, and then suddenly like all of the evil Hamas Palestinians at the border all just flood in with their AK-47s and their innate hatred for Jews, and they just take it all over. I don't think this man is sentient. I don't think he knows what's going on around him at all. His framing of the one-state solution is genuinely insane. Like he seems to think if it would not be like the end result of like a long process of negotiations, of like smaller settlements preceding it, he doesn't think it would possibly be anything gradual. He just thinks it's immediately like Hamas being like, okay guys, let's go. Here's our chance. Kill them all. And you see Hassan has the political understanding of a child. I mean, Hassan may, but Ethan certainly does.
In response to October 7th.
Instead of indiscriminately bombing Gaza, I think the first thing to do in that situation would be to dismantle the government in the way that it existed, like get Netanyahu out of power.
Okay. So you're saying Israel in
85%.
response... Hold on, dude. You're saying in response to this terrorist attack, Israel should have dismantled their own government.
First set of actions would be to democratically take.
Here's what Israel does in response to October 7th. Nothing. Israel has no right to do fucking anything. This is Ethan trying to justify the Gaza genocide, by the way. He's trying to justify it quite simply. He thinks that Israel's like had the right to some sort of response. Israel has the right to nothing. Nothing. Just like the Nazis had no right to do anything to the resistance fighters who attack them. Even if the resistance may have attacked civilians or gone too far or whatever, they had no right to anything. Ethan talks about this like we need to give him some sort of response, a loud response that Israel was allowed to do, as if Israel itself is not entirely illegitimate. It is entirely illegitimate.
Netanyahu out of power, yes.
The problem is that Israel's been at war with its neighbors for 70 plus years, and it makes a lot of sense that there'd be some distrust there.
He's justifying Israel attacking and massacring Palestinians and all of its neighbors. What Israel does is complete terror of all of its neighbors in the Middle East, particularly Palestinians and Lebanese, by saying that Israel has been under attack, reframing victim and defender. Israel is not under attack. Israel is a genocidal settler colonial project that can only exist at the expense of others, that has been victimizing its neighbors for even before it even existed. And he's trying to frame Israel as a victim itself.
Is it really insane to think that Jews, as an ethnic minority in Israel, would not be safe? After all, Israel is a country of refugees.
No, it's not. Are you a refugee, Ethan? What were you fleeing from?
The Jews didn't come from Europe after the Holocaust. They came from the surrounding Arab countries that expelled them in massive amounts following the 1948 war. In fact,
what war? What else happened? What else happened, Ethan?
There was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba. 1 million Jews.
Absolutely, completely untrue.
All of these surrounding Arab countries had...
You notice how Ethan completely ignores everything about the founding of Israel. One, who was there beforehand? Who expelled those Palestinians? If this is a nation formed by refugees, why exactly were these people expelled before these Jews were supposedly expelled, as you put it? Were the people there all refugees, Ethan? No, this was a long-planned expulsion. This was a long-planned settler colonial project. I've gone over this a million times before. I fucking hate reiterating all this. Here are videos of mine where you can look into this. This is a video about how Israel was planned as a settler colonial project the whole time, from the very beginning. Israelis are not indigenous. Check it out on my channel. Wait, I'll let him finish what he's saying here, and then I'm going to play another clip from a video that I've already responded to him making this talking point before.
Vibrant Jewish communities in huge number, hundreds of thousands. Now, if you look at them,
He's trying to reverse victim and offender. That's what you always need to remember throughout this whole video. His entire thing is reversing victim and offender, changing the Israelis to the victims, and those who rightfully fight against them into being their victimizers.
you're looking at close to, if not literally, 0 Jews left in these countries.
Just to give you an idea, here's a visual representation of the Jewish refugees after 1948.
Jewish refugees after 1948 who fled violence and discrimination in their homelands. That's this framing.
Morocco had 265,000 Jews. Now it has 2,000.
Okay, let's look at what happened in Morocco. This is from my previous video responding to Ethan Klein. I'm just going to let him speak and then I will play my response.
Algeria had 140,000. Now it has about 50. Iraq had 150,000 Jews. Now 10. And I want to give a special shout out to my boy over in Afghanistan, one known Jew. We know him. We love him. He's the one Afghan Jew.
They were forced to leave their homes, their lives, their property, and migrate to the only place in the world that would accept them, which was it.
That's total bullshit. Absolute and total bullshit. Remember what I said about Ethan Klein ignoring people who have already responded to him and debunked him? This is a great example of that.
If it wasn't for anti-Semitism, most of them probably still live in the Arab world.
I mean, yeah, a lot of those families had to leave everything behind. Just get up and go.
Total annihilation.
I mean, just...
Okay, that is simply not true. But as I went over earlier, where Israel Zionists always saw anti-Semitism as a boon for themselves, you can see there that Ethan and Healer at least kind of acknowledge this, which I guess is okay, good on them, but they don't acknowledge the key role that Israel played in intentionally stoking that anti-Semitism in the Arab world, and the fact that in many cases, they were not so simply expulsions. There was literally the Israelis making deals with these countries to get them to expel their Jews to Israel. Firstly, again, it's important to note that what's happened to Jews in these countries, in these Arab countries, is obviously not legitimate. It was obviously wrong and illegal. However, it was a reaction to the Israeli expulsion of Palestinians. It was a reaction to a unilateral Israeli declaration of independence, followed by expansion, an expansion which has continued ever since. Something which the people who were there beforehand had never agreed to, and which was obviously unjust to expect them to accept. Israel knew that there would be an adverse reaction against this in those countries, against the Jews who were there. They had been warned of it, yet they did it anyway. For two, they present this as like some sort of immediate expulsion, but it simply was not that. Jews leaving these countries happened over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. It was not like, okay, you do this to the Palestinians, we do this to you. In many cases, these countries tried desperately to keep Jews there. They banned immigration of Jews to Israel. They banned immigration of Jews. The Jewish Agency, one of the most important Israeli/Zionist organizations in the entire world, struck a deal with the French governors of Morocco, because Morocco was still a French colony at this time, to have 100,000 Jews forcibly deported to Israel. Many of them did not want to leave. They were essentially forced onto the boat. That's not an Arab expulsion of Jews. It is an Israeli-French expulsion of Jews. Remember what he said about Morocco as his first point there? Great example of Ethan lying, huh? Leaving out context entirely. Israel did this to Morocco. So this narrative that there was like this immediate unified expulsion is simply wrong. Every one of these countries was a different country. They reacted in different ways. Some of them did not want the Jews to leave, and Israel did everything possible to try to force them to leave. One interesting thing, for example, is that the top Jewish emissary in Yemen attempted to get the Yemenis to expel their Jews, and Israeli agents carried out false flag terrorist attacks across the Arab world, especially in Iraq, in an effort to convince the Jews there that anti-Semitism in their country had made their presence untenable. The Iraqi government did not want their Jews to leave. They outlawed Jewish immigration, and the Israeli government, with help from their American and British allies, pressured the Iraqi government to rescind that law, which they duly did. Israel did everything possible to force an exodus of Jews from the Arab world. For Israelis 7-ish decades later to now weaponize this is cynical. It was certainly a tragedy, but it was entirely caused by Israel out of their own disregard for Jewish safety in the rest of the world, and their own complete disregard for the autonomy of individual Jews, individual Jewish communities, individual Jewish families elsewhere. They considered them as little more than tools for their colonial project, and did everything possible to make their lives in their Middle Eastern homes, aside from Palestine, untenable. An extremely important thing as well is that Palestinians have always been conscious of this. Palestinian negotiators have always been adamant that Israel needs to discuss the matter of Jewish compensation repatriation or return to the lands that they were supposedly expelled from with those governments, because they are Palestinians. They are not responsible for what those governments did, and they cannot negotiate on their behalf, which is obviously self-evidently true. Another thing is that the Palestinian leadership has for a very long time been conscious of what these Arab Jews mean to the Israeli propaganda narrative. And in 1975, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, at the time the most important Palestinian organization, asked that the Arab nations from which these Jews were from issue a formal invitation to them to return and be given their assets back, or at least to receive compensation. None of them took them up on this offer. In contrast, the Israeli state has never even once even acknowledged the ownership of a single Palestinian who had been expelled from their land or home, let alone offered to give it back to them. And this is because this entire narrative of Jewish expulsion, the false narrative of mass Jewish expulsion, because while there were expulsions, obviously it was not characterized solely by expulsions. There was a lot of forced migration induced by Israel, some expulsions and then some voluntary migration, is bullshit, because the Israelis don't actually care about this. For them, it is a rhetorical tool that they solely bring up in response to the Palestinian right of return. The Israeli government itself is very careful with this, because they know that if they start talking seriously and openly about this Jewish right to return to other Middle Eastern countries, that legitimizes the Palestinian one. And the Palestinian right of return is what they want to prevent, because these people don't want to go back. You know, they're living at large in Israel at the expense of Palestinians. Why would they want to go and be given like their grandparents or their great-grandparents' land back in Iraq or something? On the other hand, the Palestinians desperately need their land. They have no other land. They have no other assets. They have no other place to go. So for Israel, this is a rhetorical tool that they use, though the government itself doesn't really use it. It's mostly Zionists not operating in the official capacity who like to bring it up. In the 1990s, when the Israelis started paying more attention to this rhetorical strategy, they investigated pushing these claims during the so-called peace process that was going on then, and decided against doing so, or even trying to do like any sort of serious investigation into how much Jewish property had been lost, how much it was worth, and pushing the countries that were involved for compensation for it, because they were worried about the precedent that would set, which would allow Palestinians to do the same regarding Israel. The Israeli state in 1999 even forcibly dismantled the agency that he had set up to represent Arab Jews in their claims for their land and compensation from other Middle Eastern countries, because the organization took on a life of its own and tried to secure equal representation among it for the 1 million Middle Eastern Jews who don't live in Israel. They simply didn't actually care. For them, they set up this organization as just sort of a no-you. Once it became its own thing that no longer suited their interests, they got rid of it. So it is a dishonest narrative. They don't really care about this. It is something that they bring up and frame in a completely dishonest, bullshit way that erases a ton of the history, erases a ton of what actually happened, solely to push back on Palestinians who are attempting to claim their own right to return to the land that Israel and Israelis stole from them. The narrative, as Ethan Klein did there, requires an erasure of the Nakba to really function properly, and it requires a historical denial of what actually happened afterwards to the Jews in the Middle East, a whole lot of which was imposed upon them by Israel, because the full story is not one of reciprocal expulsions that can be compared at all. It is the Zionists and then the Israelis, after they declared independence, implementing a long-held plan to expel the Palestinians, and then also implementing measures to encourage the Middle Eastern Jews to emigrate to Israel, combined with limited expulsions which themselves only happened as a reaction to what the Israelis first did to the Palestinians, which began before they had declared independence and before the intervention of the Arab states. We need to ask here, if Israel seriously wants to press these claims for Jewish or Israeli property in these Arab countries, well, these Arab countries have been attempting to normalize relations with Israel for decades now. If anything, they are subservient to Israel and its European American allies. Yet Israel, in these negotiations, has never tried to press them for the return of Jewish property and for the right of return for Jews who had, or descendants of Jews who had left these countries. You know why that is? Because Israel doesn't care, because Zionists don't care. For them, this is a tool. Just like they use the Holocaust as a rhetorical tool to somehow legitimize the oppression, the killing, the massacre, the theft of land from Palestinians who had nothing to do with it, to the point that Netanyahu claims that Hitler only wanted to kill Jews because he was convinced by a Palestinian. In the exact same vein, this narrative of the mass expulsion of the Arab Jews is presented as the initiative of like some unified Arab consciousness where all Arabs or all Middle Easterners are responsible for what is done by any country, even though when you actually look at the facts, these things happen differently in many different countries. In many countries, there was no mass expulsion. In many countries, the Israelis did everything they possibly could to force the Jews out themselves. And this sort of homogenization serves to somehow blame this on the Palestinians and thus cynically utilize Jewish historical oppression to legitimize current Jewish supremacy and the horrific consequences of this that we are seeing presently, clear as day in Gaza. Okay, so yeah, brutalized, destroyed, and this was uploaded, and Ethan certainly saw this as almost 300,000 views. This was uploaded on October 28th, before he even announced that he was making this content nuke video. He knew that this argument had been made. He decided to ignore it completely. What more is there to say? He's just reiterating the same bullshit narrative.
Israel. The irony of this whole situation is that after the 1948 war, when Israel won the war to declare its independence, the Arab...
He calls the Nakba, as in Israel unilaterally declaring independence against the will of the Palestinian majority who was already there long before they were ever there. By the way, before they even declared independence, they were already expelling and killing Palestinians with the purpose of a long-held plan of getting rid of as many of them as possible. He frames that, which was a settler colonial ethnic cleansing, he frames that as a war, an independence war, and Israel as like the victims of a like massive anti-Semitic Arab invasion, when the Arab reaction was actually to that unilateral declaration of independence. It was actually to Israel deciding, okay, we're going to form a settler colonial ethno-state here against the self-determination of the people who are here before us and who outnumber us still. It's ludicrous framing.
countries got super anti-Semitic against their own Jewish citizenry.
They got super anti-Semitic. Oh, give me a...
That had nothing to do with Israel. And as a result, they kicked them all out, 1 million plus of them, and forced them to go. The one place they hated the most, Israel. And now those same people that forced...
Israel forced them there more than the Arab countries did.
them out of their homes are telling them they don't belong there. So if the Jews of Israel are surrounded by Islamic militant terrorist groups... then
the Jews of Israel are surrounded by Islamic militant terrorist groups. That's how he frames...
stated their goal is to annihilate Israel as a...
So Israel is surrounded by Hamas. Why does Hamas exist, Ethan Klein? Was Hamas there before Israel existed? Or was it formed in the 80s, partly on the initiative of Israel itself? Was it Israel funded Islamists in Gaza, hoping that the Islamists would become more popular than the secular organizations because they saw the Islamists as being easier to control? That didn't work out as they thought, did it? Hamas was formed as a reaction to already 40 to 50 years of Israeli oppression, ethnic cleansing, genocide, settler colonialism in Gaza, in a concentration camp. This is a resistance group. And he frames it as just poor little Israel is surrounded by evil Islamist anti-Semites. Hezbollah was formed in reaction to multiple Israeli attacks and invasions on Lebanon. Why was Israel attacking and invading Lebanon? Because the Palestinian resistance went there. So these are groups that only exist due to Israeli aggression, due to Israeli oppression, due to Israeli genocide, due to Israeli settler colonialism. It's a circular logic, isn't it? Israel does settler colonialism, Israel does genocide, Israel brutalizes people, Israel seals their land, Israel ethnically cleanses them, Israel forces them into concentration camps, Israel continues today to settle and attack their land, take as much as it possibly can from them, to brutalize them. Those people form groups out of whatever little they have, whatever little they can do to fight back against that rather than just dying on their knees. And Ethan Klein uses the resistance that is bred by what Israel does to justify what Israel is. It's this idiotic circular logic of perpetuating genocide, of perpetuating settler colonialism, of perpetuating the situation. Israel is framed as like this poor little baby boy that, out of no fault of its own, is now hated by these damn Islamist terrorists for no reason whatsoever, somehow not mentioning the situation that these supposed evil Islamist terrorists even cropped up in. It's literal Nazi logic. We invade these people, we kill them, we steal their land because they are subhuman and we don't want them there and we want them gone. They form resistance groups and they fight back against us. That resistance proves how barbaric and subhuman them are, ergo, we are more justified in what we're doing. Brilliant logic, dude. Really smart, really great pro-Palestinian brain, pro-Palestinian voice you are. Presenting groups that only exist as a result of Israeli oppression and colonization, as themselves justifying the Israeli oppression and colonization. Ridiculous. This narrative that he's trying to spread here of like supposed Jewish peril in Israel being justified by these supposedly like anti-Semitic groups who wanted to genocide all the Jews or whatever is, as I said, totally circular because he acts like these people just popped out of the ground one day wanting to blow up Israel, ignoring the circumstances of their existence. I want to note as well, like, how ready and willing Ethan is to frame basically any Arab or Muslim who he sees as like little more than a terrorist motivated by nothing more than like religious bloodlust. With the IDF, with Israel, you know, it's really complicated. Like, can you expect anything more from them? After all, they're besieged by these evil Islamic terrorists, and Israel and the IDF are obviously the aggressors. But with these people, like Hamas, Hezbollah, these groups that only exist as a reaction to Israel, to the atrocities of Israel, to the crimes of Israel. It's just, oh, they're just Jew-hating terrorists. There's really nothing more there. There's nothing more that caused this. Just clear racism. And it gets worse throughout the video.
Jewish state. And considering the historical context of Jews being pogromed from Arab countries, is it
lie
really that crazy for
as I went over
them to not feel safe as an ethnic minority, even a little bit?
Okay, so Ethan Klein is justifying ethno-nationalism there. Ethan Klein thinks that if you feel unsafe as an ethnic minority, you get an ethno-state. So he claims that he's pro-Palestine, he claims that he's not a Zionist, yet there you have him straight up justifying the existence of Israel with this narrative of Jewish peril. So I guess if you feel unsafe as an ethnic minority, which, to be clear, isn't true. Jews live in the US, in France, and wherever the fuck else. And they're safer there than they are in Israel because Israel is a colonial state. Colonialism breeds resistance. Obviously, they are way, way safer than their Palestinian victims, don't get me wrong. But the notion that Israel is legitimized by this Jewish safety argument when you could go live in New York when you were born in the USA is fucking ludicrous. And it's, as I said, just a circular logic as well. Aren't we justified in feeling unsafe as an ethnic minority? Because the people who have been victimizing, massacring, genociding, the people whose very land, whose very country we stole in order to form ours, because they hate us, doesn't that legitimize our existence? Doesn't that further legitimize everything that we've done to them? Circular logic, as I've been saying.
And that's pretty much the entirety of our disagreement. Despite what you've read on TikTok and Twitter, I've donated $6,500 to a Palestinian charity after the war
You're a millionaire, dude. No one cares.
started.
Hey, Ethan Klein, thank you for the dono. Ethan Klein gave $6,500. My goat. Thank you, Ethan.
Condemned Netanyahu as a war criminal. They're led by Netanyahu.
This is just like he's trying to frame himself in a positive light, and he's still making it clear that he's not pro-Palestinian.
Who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal.
Called the West Bank settlements an abomination.
Settlers in the West Bank are religious zealots. They're monsters. They're genocidal.
I've even said the
That's not true. Most of them aren't religious.
West Bank settlers are valid military targets.
When you talk about like colonial settlers and stuff, like that's what's actually happening in the West Bank right now.
I just want to address this right after he's
And these people are more or less valid military targets, in my opinion.
My only crime.
Ethan, if settlers in the West Bank are valid military targets, which, to be clear, I don't even explicitly agree with that. Like, I understand why Palestinians might target them. I mean, they're fucking stealing your land and homes. Would you not be angry at them? Would you not attack them? However, calling them valid military targets, like, in their entirety, I don't know, man. I think military energy would be much better spent on attacking, you know, the actual soldiers, if possible. However, it is completely out of line and logically incomprehensible to say that you think West Bank settlers are military targets, but you think the Gaza envelope that was attacked on October 7th was little more than an anti-Semitic massacre of Jewish civilians. Because most West Bank settlers aren't even like on the front line, like they're behind a wall that separates them from Palestinians. There's not really any easy access to them. The ones on the front line who are like actively trying to steal even more land, those are like the really bad ones, right? Do you know what the Gaza envelope is? Let me show you a map. So the Gaza envelope is basically what was attacked on October 7th. And there is like an encirclement of settlements surrounding Gaza. Like here, you know, all around it. And these settlements explicitly exist because in 1948, and I have another video on this, I've gone over all of this shit already, trust me. In 1948, what Israel did is they expelled everyone from this area here and also from a lot of other places. They expelled them to Gaza, and then they sort of created a perimeter around it of settlements and military bases in order to keep them in. So the settlements that surround Gaza are built on like the ruins of Palestinian villages, Palestinian houses, and they specifically exist to provide Israel with a first line of defense, a shield against Palestinians from Gaza trying to go back to the places that they were expelled from. Again, this video that I have on that is a very in-depth video about that. The IDF was assigned to determine the location of new settlements around Gaza, which would be integrated into the territorial defense system in order to basically defend against Palestinians. Essentially, these settlements exist as colonial frontier human shield settlements in order to keep Palestinians confined into Gaza. They are the front line of defense, which is why there's so many military bases all around them. And quite simply, those who choose to live in these settlements are way worse than most West Bank settlers. Even worse. I'm not saying West Bank settlers are good. They are crazy maniacal murderers, colonial settler maniacs. But people who live in the Gaza envelope settlements are worse than most of them. You have to be something of a settler colonial maniac to actively choose to live in a place that exists to make you sort of a human shield against the victims who were expelled, so that your settlement could be built on the ruin of their land, on the ruin of their own. People from these settlements are noted for their particular sadisticness in, for example, whenever Gaza is bombed, they set up like couches and get their binoculars out so they can watch the Palestinians being massacred. So it doesn't make any sense for Ethan Klein to say that West Bank settlers are fair game and then try to frame October 7th as little more than like an inexplicable attack on Jews being Jews by like Palestinians who sprouted out of the ground as while being anti-Semitic. If October 7th had happened in the West Bank, Ethan Klein would be equally against it as he is against it coming from Gaza. And I think it's ridiculous that he pretends otherwise. It's ridiculous that he would say something like that he clearly does not believe in, just to try and frame himself as pro-Palestinian, as if we all can't see like the broader context of what he has said before and what it means about his ideology and what he openly said in this video. He's a two-statist because he believes that a Jewish majority needs to be maintained because Palestinians are a demographic threat and they cannot be allowed to have a higher number in the population than Jews because, oh, we'll massacre them, they're innately anti-Semitic, we can't trust them, we will be unsafe. We'd be unsafe living beside our victims, we need to keep them out even more. Like, what a joke, man.
Is wanting a two-state solution instead of one.
So this is like just people calling him racist and stuff, calling him a Zionist. There's nothing wrong with any of these messages. These are all accurate. Like he's just pissed that people accurately clocked him and that we can also all see through his bullshit claiming that he's like actually pro-Palestinian just because he's against Netanyahu because he used the word genocide once or twice. As if we haven't seen him arguing with everything else that I've gone over with his slimy whitewashing of the Nakba. I mean, he's obviously a Zionist. I don't need to go on here. He's obviously a Zionist, and he thinks that just because he says he's like a liberal Zionist instead of like a Netanyahu-style Zionist, that makes it okay. By the way, guess what? I have another recent video all about liberal Zionists, liberal Zionism and why it's crap and bullshit that you should definitely check out. If you're going to watch any of the videos that I recommended you of mine here, check this one out. It's called Jewish Exceptionalism, Liberal Zionism, and Jewish Supremacy. And it will explain a lot of the stuff here regarding Ethan Klein's ideology, because he is precisely the sort of person who this video is about.
And thinking it's not okay to kill Israeli civilians. That's it. That's why they're calling me a Nazi Zionist.
He said it was okay to kill Israeli civilians in certain contexts, like the West Bank. As I just said. So apply that logic to the Gaza envelope, which is way worse than the West Bank in most cases.
And because of Hassan and others spreading this malicious lie about my beliefs, I'm even getting harassed on the street.
So how come you don't like Palestine?
I like Palestine.
No, you don't.
Why do you say that?
Because, bro, you're... wasn't she in the IDF?
Yeah.
Oh.
Disgusting. She was in the IDF.
Oh, damn, that's crazy.
Mandatory service.
That's sad.
Nothing mandatory about it. You can refuse. It's quite easy to refuse. The penalty for refusing is like 3 months in prison. Way better than helping to massacre babies, isn't it? I've been over this before. Don't worry. I've been over this before. Oh my God, it's just endless shit. No, I mean, I don't know. I'm just taking too long, man. I feel the need to respond to every little thing because it's all such bullshit and wrong. I need to stop that impulse. It's too much.
That's terrorism, bro.
She was born there.
That's sad.
She's born there, so it can't be terrorism, I guess. Well, Hamas was born there. Are they terrorists?
Bad for you guys. Ethan Klein, bro, you're ugly as fuck, bro. You're ugly as shit. You look like a rapist. Bro, look in the fucking... You look like a fucking rapist, Ethan. Feel bad for you guys. Ethan Klein, bro, you're ugly as fuck, bro. You're ugly as shit. You look like a rapist.
I say nothing wrong with this. Nothing that he said is wrong.
Bro, I'm tired of all these coward Americans in the South trying to act like they're so tough. Oh, I'm American. Look, you don't even run your own country. You don't run your own country, bro. You don't run your own country. A foreign country named Israel runs your country.
Okay, this guy's a dumbass, actually.
Oh my God.
What he said in the first clip was not wrong, though. Now, obviously, Israel does not control the USA. The USA, if anything, controls Israel. But that just makes a lot of Ethan Klein's arguments worse, because like he tells people to vote for Biden in spite of Biden fully supporting the genocide, when Biden could, with a phone call, force Israel to stop it whenever he wants. He has that power easily. You know, he could threaten to withdraw all military support, all military supply. He could threaten to just straight up like invade them, attack them or something. He didn't do that, did he? So obviously the USA is the one who controls, the one who, if anything, controls Israel. And this guy is just, Ethan's like, look at this guy, right? Guilt by association. He's a creep of Hassan with this guy who harassed me, apparently. Everything that he said to you was correct. Call harassment if you want. He's not wrong.
Can I give you a hug, bro?
I'm so sweaty, bro.
I love you, bro.
I'm so sorry.
Is Hassan supposed to know who this guy is?
I love you, bro. I have to interview you. You're my hero, bro. I love you. Bro, you're the coolest guy in the world, bro. Hold on, I think I look gay.
This guy likes Hassan. Ethan, do you know the people who like you? If you want to do guilt by association, let's talk about your guilt by association with Destiny, the sex criminal, and like hundreds, thousands of his fans, Ethan.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Hold on, I think I look gay now.
Okay. The funny thing about me, I don't like terrorism, and I don't like terrorists.
You're married to a terrorist. You're married to a terrorist, Ethan Klein.
Jews, Christians, Muslims, they're all bad. What is terrorism? It's intentionally targeting civilian population for political goals.
That's Israel. You just described Israel. Your wife was a member of the IDF. Call her a secretary if you want. Do you think that a secretary for the Hamas military wing would not be a terrorist? You would think they would be a terrorist 100%. So why is a secretary for the IDF not a terrorist? Not to mention that, but as we went over in the clip earlier, she was like a logistical employee who was far removed from the front line. She found that boring, so she asked to be transferred to somewhere with more action, and they sent her to the occupied West Bank, where she was worked directly under the regional commander in charge of doing terrorism against Palestinians in the West Bank in Ramallah. And that was still not fun enough for her, so she asked to go on an outright terrorist raid. If that's your definition of terrorism, then your wife is a terrorist. It's that simple.
I don't like it, none of it. And over time, I started to learn that my co-host, he really likes terrorists.
They do musicals. They're very musical people.
I want him to try to explain how these people are terrorists. I want to see him actually argue for that without just appealing to people already thinking they're terrorists because they're Arab. I want him to argue for why these people are terrorists and why Hila Klein is not. Because if these people are terrorists, Hila is a mega extra, like omega terrorist.
Serious? Dog, what do you look? You think I made this? I know they're singing, but I'm seeing these guns and shit. This isn't a music video, Hassan. Taking over these ships, they started targeting the ships.
People on this helicopter right now?
Yes, they're streaming this. Yeah, they're flexing.
What? And they're coming in hot with guns.
Yeah, but you have to understand, this is a deterrent. We think the Houthis, Ansar Allah, is doing what Luffy would do. You should tell him that.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization.
Do we like them or no?
He just said that the Houthis he put an ISIS flag next to Lucky from that anime or whatever. It's funny how I know the name of the character but not the anime. But like to say, One Piece, that's it. To try and say that the Houthis are the same as ISIS when the Houthis literally fought ISIS. Fucking moron.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say. But they are a terrorist organization. Like they're designated. They are designated by the American state as a terrorist organization.
I do not.
Cuba was designated by the U.S. state as a state sponsor of terrorism. Does that mean that Cuba is a terrorist organization? Whether someone is a terrorist or not is not decided by whether the U.S. government designates them as such, okay? That's a simple fact. The U.S. government is a geopolitical actor. It's going to designate whoever the fuck it considers its enemies as terrorists. That's why it considered Nelson Mandela a terrorist until 2008. It means fucking nothing. If your evidence is the U.S. government says so, then you are so lobotomized I don't even know why I'm bothering to respond to you.
I like them then.
Well,
He is regarded as a pretty brilliant person in terms of like everything that he's done.
Then I saw clips like this where Hassan is explaining how he's hiding his
He doesn't actually tell us why they're terrorists.
power level to funnel in normies into radicalization.
I think that in the short term, in order to combat against that, you have to advocate for a much lighter form of propaganda. You want America, in the way that I feel about it, and if you want America to get out of the way for places with more revolutionary potential to do what they would normally do, I think that, one thing you have to do is advocate for a lighter form, while simultaneously still doing agitated propaganda that goes beyond, democratic idea.
I just wanted to put emphasis on the exact point of the so-called radicalization funnel, where, for example, Hassan and JP catch them while they're young, as they say, and then they start looking into this new idea, etc., and then move forwards through the funnel, get more and more informed, get more and more radical.
Is Ethan just presenting to us by default this idea that having radical politics, like radical leftist politics is bad and we're just supposed to take it as like being bad. What about what Hassan actually has said is wrong? Like he just presents everything as self-evident. As I was like, is he going to explain to us how these people are terrorists? Is he going to explain to us why they're wrong and why Israel, who they are opposed to, is right? He's not. He just skips over everything. He doesn't make arguments. He just shows clips. And maybe like for 1 out of 10 of the clips, he actually responds to them.
You do your part in the funnel for the cause or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You're doing, in my modest opinion, a great thing for the cause.
Now listen to Hassan during our very first conversation lie to me about how he's a social democrat to hide his power level.
We should move towards a Sweden-style economy or a Norway-style economy, which would be a social democracy.
You have to advocate.
But he's not lying about that here. He's not lying about shit. That he's like a gradualist. Like he believes in like he said, we should move to a social democracy. How does that mean that he's not also a socialist, right? There's lots of people who are like this, who believe that like, you know, you should have short-term goals that are more realistic and eventually you will move towards something that you want more that you want, right? Like, you surely understand that, Ethan Klein. Don't you advocate voting for Joe Biden even though he does genocide? Don't you understand compromise in the short term for supposed long-term benefits? Which isn't even on the same plan as what Hassan is saying here, by the way. But like, you're presenting this as a gotcha as if Hassan hides who he is. He does not. If anything, Hassan is not radical enough, by the way.
For a much lighter form of propaganda.
With robust social safety nets.
Cold radicalization funnel, catch them while they're young, as they say.
And protections for workers.
This is like unhinged conspiracy theorist shit, dude.
Higher unionization rates.
A lighter form, while simultaneously still doing agitated propaganda that goes beyond social democratic ideas.
Hell, he's proclaimed it loudly that he is a self-described propagandist.
I'm a propagandist.
And?
Well, no, for the record.
You think you're not a propagandist even though you don't say it? You like admit it. Admit it. Like propaganda is not a negative term. It just means that you advocate for certain ideas.
No, I'm not calling it propaganda.
Only really in English does propaganda have this negative connotation.
Just saying, I'm going to play you.
I'm saying I am.
Okay, well then, I'm
saying I am.
I just
before
want to
you even play it.
A propagandist is much more than someone with a bias. It's someone who knowingly lies to further their
No, it's not.
political agenda.
And then I had a terrifying vision.
Propagandist is someone who spreads propaganda for certain political ideas. That's all that means. Propaganda can also, in other languages like Spanish, it can also just mean like an ad. Like a shampoo ad can be called propaganda. That's all that it means.
Had I been duped? Was Hassan presenting a Trojan horse to my community where he was just a left-wing?
Had you been duped? You're a 40-year-old fucking man. This is one of the people with the most documented existences alive today. Had you been duped by him? You're acting like you're a poor little baby boy who was groomed into like a gang or something against your will. When you're talking about like you made a podcast with this guy who is one of the most documented human beings in existence today.
Democrat like myself, and as he said in the previous video, was funneling them into radicalization and turning them against me.
Liberals are some of the easiest to manipulate people on the fucking planet, dude.
I learned how much he hates liberals.
Dude, I hate
You
liberals,
didn't know this
dude.
beforehand? Like half of these clips are probably from like years before you even made the podcast with him.
I do.
What's wrong with hating liberals, by the way? Liberals are the biggest snakes in the world. You're a great example of that because you claim to be pro something that you're not, and you try to like shift the needle to the point where like you're framing pro-Israel Zionist goals as pro-Palestinian, and that is so much worse than being like Netanyahu and just outright saying what you truly and unequivocally believe and who your ideas serve to benefit and who they serve to hurt. You're way worse as a liberal. You're way harder to fight as a liberal than the far right are. Because, you know, Netanyahu is open and obvious about what he is. You believe in a lot of the same shit. Like 90% of the most important stuff that he believes in, you believe in. Like maintaining a Jewish majority, maintaining a Jewish ethno-state, keeping Palestinians who you expelled out of your country. But you present yourself as being like fundamentally different to him based only on the other 10%. Like, okay, Netanyahu wants the rest of the West Bank. I don't think we should take the West Bank, though. That's it. Wow, man, you're so fundamentally different. You're definitely not a Zionist.
I hate them. I hate them so viciously.
Did he secretly despise me this whole time?
I'm sorry, dude. I hate liberals so much.
I mean, just from the clips that I've seen of that show, which most of which I've seen like during this, like Hassan treated Ethan like literally like a child. Like it was like Hassan's not even. I don't even have a great opinion of him, by the way. I mean, I'm gonna piss off his fans here, but I don't think he's the smartest political commentator in the world. I don't think he knows that much. But he makes Ethan Klein look like a baby. Literally, he makes Ethan Klein look like a 12-year-old learning about basic concepts for the first time. So it's so funny that he's like, was I duped here? Like, I mean, you were duped like in the same way that I guess like an 8-year-old is duped into believing that Santa Claus is real.
Did this man sit next to me for 2 years and pretend to be my friend?
Dude, liberals are a burden on this planet, dude. Liberals are the most, like...
This is so negative that Hassan made it.
Gummy, vile, fucking idiots. Liberals are incredibly stupid. I hate these petulant liberals, dumb fucking liberals.
What else is someone this sociopathic capable of?
Liberal...
Sociopathic hell! Conspiracy framing, I love it!
Was I being manipulated this whole time?
That was my fear anyway, regardless of his true beliefs.
Poor little baby boy.
That broke my trust in him, and I pretty much ended the show immediately. And
you ended the show because you couldn't handle that you were being called out for being a pro-Israel Zionist. We know.
I felt guilty for my participation in mainstreaming Hassan. And for that, I apologize. I should have done more research, and I should have looked more deeply into who I was getting in bed with before they gave me chlamydia. Sorry, Gila. Over the past year since the show ended, I continue to watch Hassan.
I'm gonna make this faster because it's taking way too long, especially because my responses are far too in-depth, more in-depth than this
promote and propagandize terrorist organizations. And every time it happened on Twitch, I would say, man, this time surely he went too far, and someone's got to do something. But as the time went on, nothing happened, and his views got more and more radical and more disturbing. I feel it's my obligation, after mainstreaming someone like Hassan, to take this on. And so
you didn't mainstream someone like Hassan. He's been mainstream. He's mainstream, actually mainstream. You aren't mainstream at all. You're a guy who has like a YouTube podcast where you talk about celebrity drama. Hassan's actually like featured in the mainstream media and stuff, and has been for like 5+ years. Like, he was mainstreaming you.
It was war. Nuclear war.
I stand before you following the footsteps.
Okay, I'm not going to watch his like extremely supposedly funny intro that he probably paid someone to make. But I do want to note that after that, he has an ExpressVPN sponsorship. Let's look at who ExpressVPN is. So ExpressVPN is a company that is owned by a certain Israeli businessman, Teddy Sagai. Teddy Sagai is a compulsive donor to the IDF. He has donated millions to the IDF, around at least 5 million from what I've been able to see. He attends like the Friends of the IDF gala. He's been doing this for decades. So basically, Ethan Klein's video is sponsored by a company owned by a fanatical genocidal Zionist who funds the IDF. Very much on brand. Couldn't expect much more from Ethan Klein, could ya?
ExpressVPN.com/H3HD for 4 free months. Or scan.
I am.
So this next part is all like just Ethan trying to be funny about Twitch and stuff. I'm gonna get to the part where he starts talking about the Houthis, who are like his example of Hassan Piker supporting terrorism.
Or that designer dog.
This breed's stunning fluffy coat comes with a price. Chow Chows.
Oh, fuck no. Very cute, by the way. But those are expensive. The point is, we have the biggest political streamer on our platform that is influencing media and influencing young kids everywhere. If we can normalize terrorism, if we could rebrand it, then fuck the U.S. Navy. You know how much
I want to get to him talking about supposed terrorism.
Take a look at a recent media analysis by Ad Fonte, which rated Hassan as the most extreme left-wing, untrustworthy media source on the...
I mean, dude, if Ad Fonte said so, I guess it's true, man.
Mike, let's start with our good friend Luffy here and his organization, the Houthis. And yes, this is what it looks like. They are hiling Hitler. The Houthis...
Firstly, Rashid is not a Houthi. He has clarified this many times. He's not a Houthi. He's just a Yemeni citizen. He might support the Houthis, but he's not a member of the organization. He said this many times. There's no reason why we shouldn't take his word on this, any more than we shouldn't take Hila Klein's word on her only being a secretary in the IDF, Ethan, until you can provide any evidence otherwise. He is not a Houthi, and it's ridiculous that you keep saying so. Not that it would be bad if he was. It would be good. He's like, they are hiling Hitler. Dude, in the Arab world, the Roman salute is used all the time. It has nothing to do with Hitler. It's used quite simply as a normal salute. It was originally picked up by Pan-Arabism in like the 30s and the 40s, and it's just been sort of like a staple of certain like Arab armies and such ever since. Here is the normal Lebanese army, which is not the army that fights Israel, by the way. These guys do nothing. I don't even know why they exist. They never fight Israel. Here's the regular Lebanese army doing the Roman salute as well. In short, this is just totally different context in the Arab world, and it has nothing to do with hailing Hitler. You dishonest piece of shit. Again, this is just emblematic of Ethan basically relying totally on narrativization. Like, he never tries to explain things, never tries to like provide evidence for his points. He just tells you what to believe and moves on it if it's sort of self-evident. And most of the clips that he plays of like Hassan, he doesn't even try to respond to. It's ridiculous. It's pure narrative. It's preaching to a choir of morons, of lobotomized morons. His strategy here is not to actually deal with the facts. It's to try and convince the viewer that there are a bunch of negative associations that this Rashid guy has. Like, he's a Houthi, those are terrorists, he's a terrorist, he's not even a Houthi, and there's no explanation for how the Houthis are terrorists. Look, you know Hitler's bad. These guys are doing a salute that looks oddly like the Hitler salute, right? ignore the context and everything. They're hailing Hitler. That's his strategy here, because on the actual facts, he's going to fall over, as you'll see.
These are an Islamic military group. They're known for their cruel measures, forcibly recruiting child soldiers.
They're known for their cruel measures. Bunch of zero context headlines. You can read this one, for example, and this is an article by DW, which is obviously a German and thus incredibly unreliable. You can see in this article, for example, right there on the screen, it says that both the Houthis and the government do the same thing, and it's just criminal for him as well not to provide any context for how and why this might happen, like the fact that Yemen has been under a brutal assault by the Saudis, by his own country, the USA, and his other country, Israel, for the last more than a decade. What has happened in Yemen can accurately be described as a genocide, and he does not seem to want to mention this. He does not seem to want to mention who has been carrying out the genocide. It's not the Houthis, it's the Saudis. It's the Yemeni government who they back. This is like talking about how brutal the French resistance are in World War II without providing the context of who they were fighting, why they were fighting them, and the broader war. It's insane to do this. It's just so dishonest. It's such bullshit.
Shelling civilian areas and blocking food from entering already famine-ruined parts of Yemen.
It's insane, by the way, that he's blaming famine and starvation in Yemen on the Houthis without mentioning what the actual cause of that is. The Saudi blockade, which is still ongoing, by the way, the Saudi blockade against Yemen, ongoing since 2016, which is the actual cause of the famine in Yemen. You know, the Saudi blockade backed by the US and Israel, that blockade, as it says here on Wikipedia, for example, the main cause of the crisis is the ongoing Yemeni civil war. Aid cannot effectively reach the population because of the ongoing civil war and the blockade of Yemen by Saudi Arabia. To try and blame the Houthis for the famine imposed upon Yemen by the Saudis in two ways: by them backing the incredibly unpopular and illegitimate former Yemeni government, by them bombing the country, massacring people, obviously, and by them literally blockading the country and intentionally preventing food imports from entering. To blame that on the people who are fighting against them, to not even mention the context of any of this, is utterly fucking crazy. This guy is just a genocide supporter at this point. Like, this level of decontextualization of the Saudi-American genocide in Yemen, we can only assume that he supports it. Otherwise, why would he do propaganda like this for the fucking Saudi genocidal monarchy? There's no other possible reason.
They've also set up landmines in agricultural spots.
So I just want to note here that like half of Ethan's sources for this section basically just Saudi state propaganda. You can see here, this is ArabNews.com. Arab News is an English daily newspaper published in Saudi Arabia. It is owned by Prince Turki bin Salman Al Saud, the brother of the ruling Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. So this is literally Saudi state propaganda, dude. Dude, you uncritically cited a Saudi state propaganda article, an article released by the Saudi state at the height of the genocide in 2018 to claim that the evil Houthis were mining like everywhere to like intentionally kill civilians like a Batman supervillain or something. You know, this article that is based on them saying that they spoke to Yemen's army, aka the Saudi-backed illegitimate puppet government that the Houthis have been fighting. And they had the source for this according to this newspaper owned by the brother of the fucking head of state of Saudi Arabia. Dude, he just uncritically cites fucking Saudi state propaganda against the people who are fighting against that genocide of Yemen. He does this multiple times. Just flashes a headline on the screen that he got from fucking Saudi state propaganda. And he accuses fucking Hassan of being paid. Dude, who's paying you? Because we know the Saudis actually pay people for this shit. Like, your conspiracy theory about the fucking Houthis paying Hassan to spread their propaganda is absurd. A conspiracy theory about you being paid by the Saudis is not. And especially you being paid by billionaire Zionist businessmen, which you factually have been due to your ExpressVPN sponsorship, huh? You took money from someone who donated $5 million to the fucking Israeli Defense Force terrorist organization. So yeah, Saudi state propagandist Ethan Klein. Pro-genocide propagandist Ethan Klein, using Saudi state propaganda like Goebbels tier propaganda to legitimize the Saudi genocide of Yemen. Dude, if you're not going to analyze your sources, tell us why they're reliable, how they're not just propaganda. Obviously, Western countries who are aligned with the Saudis, given the Saudis are genociding Yemen, they're going to support the Saudi line on this, so you can't simply rely on every single fucking thing that you see reported on the Western media. But ultimately, he's saying all of this to avoid the main point here, which is that why do people support what the Houthis are doing in regards to the Gaza genocide? That's what this is actually about, which is the blockade that they declared and duly carried out until recently, very recently, until like a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago rather, against Israel and Israel-aligned shipping in order to try to do something to stop the Israeli genocide of Gaza. That is what Ethan is opposed to here. Even if the Houthis were like the absolute worst people in the world, which to be clear, they're not. Ethan Klein is someone who previously has made clear that he's a lesser evilist. He supports Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden does genocide, for example. He scolds people for not voting for Joe Biden, even. In the context of Yemen, the Houthis, even if all of this were true, they're still less bad than the Saudi-backed former government who they have deposed. They are still less bad than their enemies. So using your own logic, you should at least like begrudgingly support them until something better comes along. But you don't. This lesser evil logic is only ever applied to imperialist countries and never to their victims. You should think about why that is. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter how terrible they are. You know, Iran launches missiles at Israel in retaliation for what they do in Gaza, and I support that, but I'm certainly not pro-Iranian like government. Even if the Houthis were terrible, horrible, evil people, as you're trying to claim, their blockade against Israel, what it's doing in Gaza, would still be just, would still be good. And I'm glad they're doing it. They're one of the few people in the world who are trying to do anything for Gaza. Gaza, a place besieged not just by Israel, but by all of the most powerful countries in the world who are supporting Israel. No one has taken any real action for them, aside from really Yemen and a tiny little bit of action taken by like Hezbollah. I guess the Hezbollah action proportionately was okay, I suppose, and Iran. And I do not really give a shit, honestly, about you splitting hairs about how bad these people are, because ultimately you don't care about how bad they are. What you're against is not that. What you're against is what is them taking action against Israel, because you are an Israeli Zionist ethno-nationalist. You are against them taking real action, trying to take action to stop the genocide in Gaza, trying to impose some sort of penalty on the countries carrying out said genocide and supporting it. That's ultimately what this is about, and we can't lose sight of that. This is bullshit. It's not what he's worried about here at all. He knows that the most difficult position here is actually arguing against the blockade and the merits of the blockade alone. So he's trying to like prime the viewer and poison the well by saying the people carrying out the blockade are bad. Look at all these bad things they do. Totally out of the context of why they're like this, why Yemen is so poor, the fact that the imperialist countries that he supports are a massive part of the reason for why the Middle East and Yemen in particular is relatively poor, and that said poverty is what breeds reactionary views and sentiments.
Virtually worthless. Women have virtually no rights, and homosexuality, of course, is punishable by death.
What do you fucking expect? Do you want these people living in abject fucking poverty in the midst of a fucking genocide to have like the most progressive, be like enlightened women's rights advocates and legalize gay marriage or something, dude? Do you know what the best way to combat poverty in Yemen would be? For your country not to commit genocide there. For the USA and Israel not to have backed a Saudi genocide there. That's what would be the best way to combat this stuff in Yemen. To combat these regressive attitudes in Yemen. But you literally are not even going to mention any of that. You're in fact going to frame what is in large part due to the Saudis as the fault of the fucking Houthis. And worse, you're doing all of this by posting Saudi state propaganda and ultimately supporting the Saudi genocide of Yemen in doing so. You're siding with the Saudis here, who the Houthis mainly fight. Ethan, what happens if you're gay in Saudi Arabia? What do they do to women in Saudi Arabia, Ethan? Well, you just got by your fucking logic. Saudi Arabia also doesn't have the excuse for these reactionary views, given that it's not a poor country like Yemen is. How crazy it is that you're totally okay with spreading fucking Saudi propaganda when it's convenient for you in favor of that genocide of Yemen. You're totally okay with weaponizing the genocidal Goebbels der Sturm of propaganda designed to legitimize the genocide of Yemeni people put out there by Saudi Arabia, which executes gay people. And then you turn around and say, whoa, these guys are evil because they do the same thing that the people whose propaganda I'm spreading here also do. Such a dumb motherfucker, Ethan Klein.
That lines up with leftist values. Now, just how little rights do women in Houthis Yemen have? Well, according to this, there's been 1,108.
Well, according to what, man? What is this? I'll tell you what it is. This is a headline, Anadolu Ajansi, which is Turkish state media. Now, this might surprise you. In Yemen, Turkey supported the US and Saudi-backed former Yemeni government that the Houthis have now overthrown. So obviously, Turkish state media is going to say something like this. Let's check out the evidence for this. It's based on a report. Let us look at like the website of one of the authors of this report. Now, just to be clear beforehand, obviously, sexism is going to be fucking rampant in a poor conservative country like Yemen, with or without the Houthis. And that is really to be expected because the way that Yemen is specifically a result of European colonialism, followed by now further European impositions onto Yemen via what has been a totally brutal genocidal campaign by Saudi Arabia and the US to essentially keep the country down as reprisal for them daring to try to overthrow the US-friendly government. It's more circular logic, right? Like, our imperialism is justified against these people because they have regressive social views, but those regressive social views are caused by poverty. Poverty which is imposed upon this country by the imperialism that ensures that these countries can never ever advance, can never ever get their people any sort of material alleviation, from which generally, as Western countries themselves have shown over their own material advancements over the last 100, 200 years or so, breed progressive social progress on things like women's rights and gay rights. Not in the USA anymore, though. Ethan justifies all of his hatreds with circular logic, where the result of the thing that he supports being done to these people justifies that thing being done to them. Imperialists are always like this. Look out for it. So let's just look at one of the organizations cited by this Turkish state media report, like the Coalition of Women for Peace in Yemen. Check out their website, and they have nothing regarding like who funds them. They won't tell you about that. I wonder why. It's 100% the Saudis. They're not going to tell you that, though. There's no legal obligation for them to do so because, you know, they run outside of the confines of like US law, which is where organizations would usually have to tell you this stuff, or EU law and stuff like that. So this organization is an initiative of Noura Al-Jawi, who, according to her own About Me page here, was a member of the Ministry of Youth and Sports in Yemen, aka she was a former member of the outgoing Yemeni government, Saudi-backed government, and now she has formed this organization, which is called Women for Peace in Yemen. Now, you would think an organization that's for peace in Yemen would be like non-denominational, call out the atrocities of everyone. No. Specifically, it says here, our aim is to free women who have been arbitrarily detained by the Houthis. Only the Houthis. They don't care about anyone arbitrarily detained by the government, only the Houthis. It's almost like this organization barely even exists and is essentially just a propaganda front to, like, if you look at their social media handles, it's under Houthis. Under Houthis. It's all about opposing the Houthis, providing negative propaganda about the Houthis in English. They even have like a film, a trailer for a film, Detained Under the Houthis. It's like the entire point of this organization is just fairly lazy anti-Houthi propaganda for an English-speaking audience. I guarantee you, if you looked into like who funds this organization, who's really behind it, it would be Saudi Arabia. But don't worry, because he's about to cite another source soon enough that is much more directly and clearly Saudi Arabian. Like, he's basically citing negative propaganda in media with an incentive to provide negative propaganda about the Houthis to tell you why the Houthis are bad, which, even if all of it were true, is the same shit that the previous government was doing. They would not delegitimize what Ethan really has a problem with, which is their blockade against the genocide being carried out by Israel.
81 violations committed by Houthi rebels against women, including torture, rape.
Wow, it said that in the headline. It must be true.
And murder. So
Ethan does zero source analysis, zero critical analysis.
The Houthis have a very wholesome flag, as you can see here. It says, translated, Allah Akbar, death to America, death to Israel.
What's wrong with death to America and death to Israel? These are the two countries that have victimized the Middle East more so than anyone else. What's wrong with that? If you would be Middle Eastern, you wouldn't hate America and Israel, especially being dirt poor as most people in Yemen are. I don't know. I don't think you're human.
And a curse upon the Jews, and that's all of them, not just the ones in Israel. And of course,
do you know what Jew means to someone in the Middle East? All that they know about Jewish people is that there is a state that calls itself a Jewish state in Israel that brutalizes people in the name of what they say is Judaism and Jewishness. If that's all that you know about Jews, if you have a state that equates itself with Jews in general, and you take it at its word and you say, okay, well, I hate Jews then. Like, you have to at least put this within that context, but Ethan doesn't do that, does he? Here's what Israel does, okay? Israel brands people's faces with the Star of David. Here's a Palestinian man whose face was branded with the Star of David. Here's a salted field in Gaza with the Star of David in it. Here's another one carved into the field with tank tracks. Israel is a country that claims that it's for Jews so much that the Israeli Supreme Court does not let Jews register their nationality on their identity card as Israeli, because it says that doing so would undermine Israel's Jewishness, because according to the Israeli state, Israelis don't exist, only Jews exist. So Israel is a state that says it's for Jews, by Jews, and carries out endless atrocities against everyone in the region, not just Palestinians, pretty much everyone they attack. And it does this while saying it's for Jews by Jews, as I just said. And Ethan Klein removes all of this context, because that's all of these people know about Jews. These people see Israel say, I'm murdering you because I'm Jewish, I'm genociding you because I'm Jewish, and they say, well, okay, I'll take you at your word. And for Ethan Klein, the problem isn't that Israel says and does those things. It's that these dirt poor people living under the boot of the worst imperialism in the world, some of the worst atrocities in recent modern history have been carried out in Yemen especially. And he's like, whoa, they say they hate Jews? Whoa. They must have just sprouted out of the ground, anti-Semitic. It's appealing to basically, like, as I said earlier, this ignorant idea in the West that that Jews are like perpetually like concentration camp inmates, basically. When in the context of Israel is a state that says we are Jewish, we do all of this for Jews while massacring, genociding people. Leaving that context out of something like this is utterly insane. It is utterly insane to expect like random poor people in Yemen or Palestine or whatever to see Israel doing that and to have like this enlightened perspective where they're like, no, Zionist and Jew is not the same. Particularly when you yourself equate Zionist with Jew. You do it all the time. I just want to show you a tweet that he showed earlier that I think I skipped over. So here Ethan Klein puts a tweet that Rashid Al-Khalad sent out saying, the execution that we carry out on all Zionists with a picture of like a guy impaled on a pike. Here's what Ethan Klein said about it.
To kill Jews and put their heads on pikes.
So apparently, according to Ethan, he said that he wants to kill Jews and put their heads on pikes. The tweet says the execution that we'll carry out on all Zionists. So Ethan Klein is himself equating Zionists with Jew. And he's not anti-Semitic for that, apparently. Yet other people who take Israeli Zionists at their word that they represent all Jews and do the same, they are anti-Semitic. It's fine for him, but it's not fine for them. And this guy, by the way, he does differentiate between Jews and Zionists. He's posted a long thread, he shouldn't have had to, a long post on Twitter where he explained that he doesn't hate Jews, he just hates Zionists. He said, I would like to clarify that any Jewish person, Christian or Muslim, or any other who is innocent, we will never hurt them. We protect and ask them what they want. We stand for the oppressed, which is why we oppose Zionism. It is Zionist ideology that is wreaking havoc upon innocent Palestinians and Lebanese. This guy is a 19-year-old who grew up in a country destroyed by war, attacked everywhere by some of the most powerful countries in the world, and he gets this. Ethan Klein doesn't. Embarrassing.
And of course, victory to Islam. I get amused when these terrorists are like, we hate Jews. We want to kill Jews. And then people like Hassan are like, you're a fucking racist.
Dude, why are they terrorists? Why don't you tell us?
Just for saying that they just want to kill Jews and that they're terrorists, man.
What you meant to say is Hezbollah is Muslim.
You're not thinking deep enough about this topic.
I mean, I literally just refuted this a second ago. He tries to frame it as like them being born anti-Semitic or something, rather than this being a reaction to what Israel does and has done to everyone around them for their entire lives, for generations at this point.
My criticism of the Houthis' slogan, do not factor into what they are doing. Of course, it is anti-Semitic, but contextualizing it matters. Yeah, it's really interesting because, like,
what they are doing means the anti-genocide blockade.
That is such wet.
Like, I don't know why. Let's bring up like a comparison here. The British Empire was the most genocidal empire in the world during World War II. Was it bad that the British Empire fought the Nazis? Was that like a bad thing? Because they were so much worse than these Houthis ever were. But does that mean that it was bad for them to do like a good thing, like, you know, fight Hitler, fight Italy, fight Japan? I'm sure Ethan would say, no, of course not. You know, they were bad, but, you know, Hitler was worse, and it's good that they joined in the war against him. It's good that they fought back. What Ethan is basically arguing here is that the anti-genocide blockade being carried out by the Houthis should be discarded and just by default thought of as terrible and bad because, according to his narrative, they are horrible people. Which, even if it were true, that wouldn't say anything about whether it's legitimate or not to carry out an anti-genocide blockade against Israeli and Western shipping that is allied to Israel.
Western-focused propaganda, like for a Palestinian to arrive at anti-Semitic opinions, okay?
This is just so nothing, man. There's no substance to this. Most of this is just Ethan confidently saying dumb shit, playing clips that he does not actually feel the need to debunk, and like what he seems to think are like epic editing flourishes that totally own his opponent.
They don't need to read Mein Kampf.
Dude, you are not funny. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Oh, I almost forgot the most fun one. They brought back slavery.
Ethan Klein. Source analysis time. This is the funnest part of the video. Ethan Klein, they brought back slavery. Let's fact check that. Here's evidence of this. 2 headlines. 1, slavery in Yemen by Al Jazeera. Let's look at that first. Slavery in Yemen. Al Jazeera. Let's check it out. Despite government denials, this investigation uncovers evidence of slave labor in Yemen by Al Jazeera, 10 September 2014. Now, which government was in power on the 10th of December 2014? It's the previous government, the one that was Saudi-backed to fight against the Houthis. This video is about slavery in Yemen being covered up and enabled by the previous Yemeni government that the Houthis have overthrown. You stupid motherfucker. This is pro-Houthi propaganda, if anything. What's his other source? This is such a great demonstration of Ethan. Like, he just Googles shit, puts it there, puts a headline there, and acts like he's proven his claims when he fucking has not. Houthis restore slavery in Yemen. Let's check this one out. So this one is a 2019 article from Ashaq al-Awsat. What is Ashaq al-Awsat? According to Wikipedia, it is the newspaper of a private company that was founded with the approval of the Saudi royal family and government ministers, which is noted for its support of the Saudi government. The newspaper is owned by a member of the Saudi royal family. So this newspaper is a Saudi newspaper owned and run by the Saudi royal family to post pro-Saudi propaganda. The Saudis are like the main actors in a decade-long assault on Yemen by them and their puppet government in Yemen, which has resulted in something like 400,000 deaths. So is the Saudi government a reliable actor here? Is this something that we should take at face value just based on the headline? No, this is like citing fucking Joseph Goebbels to prove that the Jews are enslaving fucking Aryans or something, dude. Like, that is this bad. These are the people who caused this great suffering, this great genocide in Yemen, and you're just citing them unfucking critically when with this propaganda they just put out to delegitimize their enemies. This is like even dumber than the other stuff that he cited. What are the sources for this? Sources close to the group told the paper. Oh, whoa! Several local reports have confirmed this. Yemeni activists have revealed. They told us that there is slavery. A lawyer told us. A civilian told us. Experts confirmed this to us. There is literally nothing here. Oh, don't forget the U.S. State Department said so. You know, the U.S. State Department, the other main actor in this Yemeni genocide, in this genocide of Yemen, fighting against the Houthis, supporting the puppet government. Wow, Ethan, you just straight up cited fucking Saudi pro-genocide propaganda from 2019, by the way, when this genocide was still in full swing. Great source, you fucking dumbass. Like, this is insane. This man does not have a critical bone in his body, and this proves it. Like, from the thing of him, like, positively citing an embarrassing clip where he just took, like, a propaganda documentary about Uyghur death camps at face value, now to this with him just taking straight up made up Saudi propaganda at face value, as well as not even like looking at what that Al Jazeera video was actually about, which was about the slavery under the government that the Houthis are fighting and have largely deposed. Absolutely fucking unbelievable. And he just moves on like he's proven this. Dude, this took him like months to make. Just for a comparison of the quality of like the research, my latest video took me maybe 12 days to make. It's almost as long as this. And I don't know how this took him two fucking months to make. Like, it just further proves the level of incompetence that Ethan Klein operates under. Like, he's just so dumb, man. What else is there to say about this? Uncritically citing Saudi government made-up propaganda and presenting a documentary from 2014 about the previous government as if it's about the Houthis. He's just going to move on as well. Like, he doesn't even engage with the sources, doesn't even actually cite anything from within them. It's just, look at this headline that says what I want to say. Look at this negative thing about these people who I want to paint negatively. That's it. Anyway, so I'm just going to make my own little article here about Ethan Klein, using the same standard of evidence that he used for him saying that Houthis restored slavery. This is the name of the news service. We are the Hassan Piker, the state news service, 100% unbiased. Okay, this is 100% unbiased news, and the headline is going to be Ethan Klein confirmed restores slavery to Beverly Hills. This is absolutely 100% objective news. You guys cannot say anything about this not being objective. Silence. Sources told us that Ethan Klein has restored slavery to Beverly Hills. Experts confirm this. A donkey in the street even made numerous noises when we asked if it would confirm the heinous crimes of Ethan Klein. As far as I'm concerned, this is dispositive evidence that Ethan Klein has returned slavery to Beverly Hills. And we need to get everyone looking into this immediately. The Hassan Parker State News Service would not lie about this. Do you think that the Hassan Parker State News Service would just make up sources that told them? Experts? They would even just interview a fake donkey? They would never do that. How dare you insinuate that? Oh my God, this is the brain of Ethan Klein, the critical thinking skills of Ethan Klein and his audience. Like, none of them question this at all. Incredible, man.
Law is doing what Luffy would do.
That lines up with leftist values. All right, so these guys are clearly the bad guys. So my question is, how does Hassan cover such a genocidal,
Clearly the
violent...
bad guys relative to who? The Yemeni government backed by Saudis committing genocide? Or Israel? Or the USA also backing those Saudis doing the genocide? Relative to who? Relative to those people, these are the good guys, even if everything that you said about them was true, including the slavery. Because that's how bad those people are, that they would be better than them. Like, come on, dude. You're just so fucking dumb. Like, these guys are the bad guys. Who are the good guys then, Ethan?
Misogynistic, homophobic, terroristic organization.
Oh, you want to see a Houthi musical? Sure. These were the people that the Saudis were killing, by the way. Just so you know, these fucking musically gifted individuals. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Why do you show us him talking about the Saudis killing them and then you provide no context about it? Has he even mentioned the Saudis? I don't think so. This is literally a song about their rebellion against the US Saudi-backed Yemeni government, which they defeated. And the only way that a group like this could possibly win in such a situation, given the pervasive international support that the former Yemeni government had, is due to their much greater local support. And you should be asking questions about why that is instead of just trying to delegitimize this.
That's right, my friend. Hassan just played straight-up terrorist propaganda without even being there to analyze it.
What makes them terrorists? You have not explained what makes them terrorists. Why are they terrorists? What is it that makes them terrorists? The US government said so? Because that's the only thing you've actually cited so far. Can you provide evidence of a terrorist attack that they have done?
Surely this must be against terms of service. Twitch does not allow content that depicts, glorifies, encourages, or supports terrorism or violent extremist actors. For example, displaying or linking terrorist or extremist propaganda, even for the purpose of denouncing such content. Denouncing? Okay, but what's the rule for endorsing it? Is that okay?
What makes this terrorist?
The answer is yes, as Hassan was never punished for this blatant violation of Twitch community.
He has not done anything to show us that they are terrorists. We're just supposed to accept it by default because they're Arab, basically. That's it. Why are they terrorists, Ethan? Why can't you include evidence of this claim in your video? Everything that he claims, it's like he just expects it to be self-evident. He does not at all, ever, actually provide any reason to believe him unless it's just like, I think this, I'm going to call them this. You know, this is terrorism. China is doing genocide. I don't have to prove any of my claims because I know that my audience is going to be perceptible to this by default. They don't know why either. I don't know why I believe this. I just do.
Guidelines. Got it. So denouncing terrorism is bad. Don't do that. Endorsing terrorism is good. Okay, got it, Twitch.
What's going on? Why are they terrorists? Can you tell us?
This is a 3-minute video of... What do you mean a music video? When you said music video, I'm expecting like Bags Out, but Chris Brown dancing, you know?
No. They do they do musicals. They're very musical people.
Are you being serious?
Dog, what is look? You think I made this?
I know they're singing, but I'm seeing this guns and shit. This isn't a music video, Hassan.
No, it is. They do musicals about like their fucking their actions all the time.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. I've got this. Instead of terrorist propaganda, let's call it musicals.
They do musicals.
Instead of violent jihadists.
Violent jihadists, like, dude, he's just throwing like negative adjectives and nouns at them. He doesn't provide any proof of his claims. Why are they terrorists? More than anything else, why are they terrorists but the IDF isn't, Ethan? Why is Rashid a terrorist but Hila Klein isn't? I'd love to talk to you live about that. We could do some comparisons and we can get to the bottom of your claims here rather than you just saying them with no fucking evidence.
Let's call them musically talented people.
They're very musical people.
Are you being serious?
Guys, let's just use our brains. Fiddler on the Roof, Wicked, Alexander Hamilton, man. There's no reason we...
Oh my God, he's so not fucking funny and just stupid. This is so embarrassing.
Can't book these Houthis on Broadway.
Well, they go, listen, you want to fucking bring a ship through here? We're going to take it. So that's exactly what the Houthis start doing. They start fucking sending in helicopters onto fucking ships. Bro, they fucking, look at this. They got the Palestinian flag that they painted under the helicopter, the Yemen flag. They fucking overtake they start overtaking the ship. And they're like, guess what, dog? No more trade to Israel. If you are sending ships into Israel, if you are owned by an Israeli subsidiary, if you're owned by an Israeli corporation.
Now, if Ethan was pro-Palestinian, as he claims himself he's pro-Palestinian, blah, 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 just a two-state solution is, he would support this act. He would support a blockade against shipping owned by Israel, going to Israel, or related to an Israel-supporting state like it's in any Western allies. He would be 100% for that. He would be 100% for real action taken against the genocide. Not just for that. You know, he would be for like fucking military intervention against Israel to stop a genocide, stuff like that. You'd think that, right? Like, this is relatively mild compared to what is warranted against Israel for its many crimes, particularly the recent genocide. This is relatively nothing. This is equivalent to like blockading Nazi shipping in World War II, or, you know, ships that refuse to identify themselves when trying to pass through a blockade, or ships that were suspected of being linked to the Nazis or their allies or whatever. That was carried out in World War II by the British, by the Americans, by everyone, basically. That's what this is. It's a blockade against shipping related to an ongoing genocide in some way. And let's see if he's for this, because you would expect someone who is pro-Palestine to be absolutely be for something as basic as this, putting actual real material pressure on a country and its allies to stop doing genocide. That is the most basic pro-Palestinian thing that I could imagine.
We're gonna take over your ship. You cannot fucking use this trade route anymore. Guess what, bitch? It's our fucking territorial boundary, and we're gonna enforce this until you stop doing genocide in Gaza.
So let's review his claims. His first claim is that the boat is headed for Israel. It's not. It's going from Turkey to India. Next claim is that it's owned by an Israeli company. It's not. It's being chartered by a Japanese company, and the boat's owners are registered in the Isle of Man.
Okay, so this is another great example of Ethan's dumbassery. Let's read this. The ship's registered owner is Galaxy Maritime Ltd, a company registered in the Isle of Man. Its flag state is the Bahamas, and at the time of seizure, the ship was chartered by a Japanese company. Galaxy Maritime Ltd is owned by the Isle of Man Shipping Corporation or something. I don't know, it's cut off. He didn't even include the whole thing. But its beneficial owners are Abraham Ungar and Yael Ungar. Abraham Ungar and Yael Ungar are an Israeli billionaire couple. So this is a ship that is owned by an Israeli company that is registered in the Isle of Man for tax purposes. Now, if you don't know, the Isle of Man is like a tiny island near Britain that is most famous for having these motorcycle races where like 5 people die per year because they just do it on the street and people crash into the wall and get like their brains just blow up. Very funny. But aside from that, do you genuinely believe that this billion-dollar shipping company owned by Israelis is just a normal company from the Isle of Man, Ethan claim? It's an Israeli fucking company registered in the Isle of Man. The Houthis know this. This is public information. Everyone knows this. That's why they stopped this. It's an Israeli company. And good on them for doing so. Thank you. You're trying to frame this as terrorism. It's like he spent the last 10 minutes poisoning the well against the Houthis to make you hate them because they're misogynistic, they do slavery, all this shit, you know, based on spurious or just outright falsified sourcing. Because he knows that the weakest part of his argument is this part, where he actually has to try to justify him opposing a blockade designed to put pressure on countries that are carrying out or supporting a genocide, which, you know, doesn't really mesh with him being pro-Palestinian. So he needs to try to find a way around this. And the way that he's trying to do that is by claiming the Houthis are just attacking random ships with nothing to do with Israel. And the first ship that he cites as evidence of this is one that's fucking Israeli, just straight up owned by Israelis. You fucking moron.
I'd like to remind everybody that the crew that's kidnapped in this video has been missing for over a year now with 0 updates on their health,
This is completely incorrect. Galaxy Leader crew was released about 2 weeks before he uploaded this video. On the 22nd of January, the crew were released, and the crew were visited by the International Red Cross twice, and it was verified that they were in good health by them. They were released completely unharmed. You are just spreading pure misinformation there.
About or anything. That lines up with leftist values.
Also, it is completely and utterly ridiculous, by the way, to frame it being the fault of the Houthis. That this blockade, which was announced beforehand, also obviously is going to involve the crew of the ships. So whose fault is it when you try to run a blockade being carried out against genocide and the crew inevitably gets caught up in that? Is it the fault of the shipping companies for running the blockade, or is it the fault of the Houthis for doing what is ultimately obviously a good thing? It's the fault of the shipping companies, obviously, and it's fucking ludicrous that you are so opposed to any action for Palestine, any real action for Palestine, that you're against even this. Like, it's desperate grasping for straws, it's desperately grasping for something to point to delegitimize absolutely anything. He's against literally everyone who fights fights for Palestine. Every single resistance group, every country, every government, he opposes them. He doesn't even like say, okay, I support this action that they do, but I'm against the government in general. I'm against this group in general, but I'm for this thing that they did. No, he's against all of it. He's against every single one. This is someone who claims to be pro-Palestine, yet he's against everyone who fights for Palestine. He's against every single action for Palestine. He has not seen an action carried out for the purpose of defending the Palestinian people that he was not against. It's so ludicrous to be like, oh, well, I guess there's crew in the ship, so you should not be allowed to stop the ship from running your blockade being carried out to put pressure on countries doing genocide. It's about on the level of arguing that you shouldn't attack a military base because there's contracted cleaners there who are civilians. Obviously, any action has the potential for collateral damage, and in this case, the collateral damage was relatively minimal. No one died, no one was hurt. As soon as the ceasefire was announced, the crew was released, the blockade was called off. Very simple.
Hassan's third claim is that this attack happened in their territorial waters, which is also a lie. It happened in international waters. Hassan is lying for
what happened in international waters? Who fucking cares? I don't give a shit if the blockade was in their territorial waters, technically, or in international waters, slightly outside of their territorial waters. Still 100% legitimate. What do you fucking think is permissible action to take to fight a genocide in Gaza? What do you think is permissible? You don't seem to support anything, not even this. He opposes this because he supports what Israel does ultimately and is against whatever is done for Palestinians. So that's why he opposes this. Don't fall for this shit. He has not seen a single action for Palestine that he's not opposed to.
the Houthis like he's being paid. And honestly, at this point, is he?
You are factually being paid to make this video by a billionaire Zionist businessman who donates millions to the IDF. And you have the gall to say that like there's a global Houthi conspiracy to do pro-Houthi propaganda.
Well, no, no, I'm not calling it that.
This is like a hostile. They're streaming this?
Yeah, they're flexing.
What? And they're coming in hot with guns.
Yeah.
Why am I supposed to think that this is bad?
Yeah, but you have to understand, this is a deterrence. Israeli society is going to start getting upset. They're going to be like, I can't get my treats. I can't get my Amazon Prime deliveries. What the fuck is going on? I hate this. Israel sucks. I'm leaving Israel. That's the goal.
I find it disturbing that Hassan thinks that a slowdown of imports is going to cause Jews to flee Israel. 80% of Israel.
Jews to flee Israel. You see what I said about just reframing Israelis as Jews? Like a blockade against a country carrying out genocide? And he's like, dude, are you saying that you want Jews to flee Israel? You want to materially impact the lives of the people of a country that's carrying out genocide? But they're Jewish. How dare you? They're just Jewish. The poor little Jewish people. Every single one of them is like permanently walking around in like a concentration camp uniform from Schindler's List. Didn't you know that? You guys need to come to terms with something, okay? Israelis are victimizers. They're not victims. Just because they're Jewish doesn't make them innate fucking victims. Israelis live great lives at the cost of Palestinians. An entire people is oppressed so that they can thrive. And Ethan Klein is framing them as little more than poor little Jewish babies. And even when their country is literally carrying out genocide, it's still somehow wrong for you to take any action against it because they're Jewish.
Israelis were born there and do not have citizenship anywhere else. So where do you want them to go?
What are you talking about? He said that he hopes that Israelis choose to immigrate because ships can't bring them their Amazon Prime deliveries. And Ethan Klein's response to that is, you want them to be in the death camps, don't you? This is insane. This is utterly fucking crazy. This guy's such a fucking spectacular moron. Oh my God. Why? You think that Israel should be put under pressure to the point where the Israeli populace turns against the government because they can't get their Amazon Prime deliveries as a result of a blockade? You want Jews to be put into death camps, don't you? What a fucking insane moron.
Poland or back to the Arab countries they were forced out of.
Israel sucks. I'm leaving Israel. That's the goal.
Hey, man. As I went over earlier, Ethan, there was actually an offer given to the Arab Jews who you say were forced out of Arab countries. I went over this in my video response to you, which I know that you've watched. So yeah, they could return there. The thing is obviously though that they don't. You know why they don't? Why would they? They live in a country that is for their ethnicity, by their ethnicity. They live great there. You know, they live on other people's land, on other people's houses. Millions of people are oppressed for their benefit. Why would they want to go back to some random other country and like get like their grandpa's house back or something? Not only that, but the Israeli government has prevented them from doing this. The Israeli government has always been against people doing that because it would legitimize the Palestinian claims to their soil and land in Israel. So as I said, they have been offered this return. The only big country that hasn't offered the return was Algeria. You know why? I forgot to mention this earlier when he brought up Algeria. You notice how he doesn't do any sort of analysis of what actually happened happened in each country. There's a reason for that. He's too fucking dumb for one, and because it would ruin his argument. What happened there is the Jews were not expelled. They were actually French citizens. And when the French were forced out of Algeria by the Algerian Revolution, the Jews there were told if they wanted to stay, they had to renounce their French citizenship. Almost all of them did not want to do that, and they went to France. And Ethan Klein frames that as expulsion, like a population who were collaborators with the colonial power, who were given privileges by the colonial power to collaborate, and upon being asked after the colonial power was kicked out, you know, you can stay, but you need to be Algerian, you can't be French. Most of them left, not to Israel, to France. And Ethan Klein framed that as like Jewish expulsion. It's fucking ridiculous, man. Anyway, so yeah, let's continue. How does he go from, like, Hassan saying there should, like, you know, a blockade against a genocide in Gaza so that Israelis, like, cause a ruckus against their government, into, what, you support death camps?
By telling the Jews of Israel to go back where they came from, Hassan attempts
Jews of Israel to go back where they came from. He didn't even say that.
to deny Jewish heritage in the Middle East.
He didn't even say that. He didn't say anything like that.
It characterizes them not as indigenous, but as white colonizers. This
They aren't indigenous to Palestine.
is despite the fact that 60% of Jews in Israel are actually native to the Middle East.
What a ridiculous talking point. Okay, Ethan, here's a simple question for you that I'd like to ask you. Is Palestine Yemen? Is Palestine Syria? Is Palestine Algeria? Is Palestine Morocco? Is Palestine Iraq? Or are these different countries? You're claiming that these people are indigenous to Palestine, specifically to Palestine, and that he's denying that they are native. You tack onto the Middle East, but you seem to think that if you're from the Middle East, you should be allowed to live anywhere in the Middle East, and, like, apparently this legitimizes you carrying out settler colonialism. Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you seem to think every single Middle Eastern country is the same. I like to test this. I like to test your theory, okay? Do you support anyone from any Middle Eastern country being allowed to move to Israel? Do you support that? After all, they're indigenous, they're natives, according to you at least. I mean, I don't think that being from Iraq means that you have, like, a God-given right to move to Palestine and displace a family there. You apparently seem to think that. It's just a ludicrous talking point, and it shows what I mean, everyone I think already realizes Ethan Klein thinks, which is that all Arabs are the same, all of the Middle East is the same. That's basically it.
This is wild. So these guys did all of this, right? They did all of this. Is that their helicopter? Yeah, that looks like a legit helicopter. It is a legit helicopter. This is wild. So they take it over, and they tell the people in the ship, it's usually like mostly Filipino people, the Filipino crews, and they're like, all right, well, you know, we got no problems with you, you know, but you're coming with us, we're taking over the ship.
What an incredible way to characterize having a gun in your face. Hassan is asking
But dude, your wife went on a terrorist raid. Guns were shoved into the faces of civilians in occupied territory. Like, it's just insane how he is so desperate to find something wrong with clearly justified actions. Like, for these people, there is never anything that can be done for Palestine that is not unjustified. They will look for any small little detail. Like, the U.S. government constantly seizes, for example, Iranian oil tankers unilaterally on the basis that apparently that's bad. Apparently, Iran shouldn't be allowed to export oil anywhere, and the USA can just say they shouldn't be allowed to do that. So they seize Iranian oil ships, they seize their cargo, they take the crew. Is that terrorism, or is it only when it's done to fight genocide?
us not to believe our own eyes as we watch terrorists possibly kidnap the crew.
We got no problems with you, you know, but you're coming with us, we're taking over the ship.
And once again, the crew is still MIA.
Remember when Ethan Klein's wife went on a terrorist raid in Ramallah in the West Bank to kidnap people from the occupied city of Ramallah? They shoved guns in their faces and kidnapped them. Yet here he is telling us that you should not be allowed to carry out a blockade against Israeli and allied shipping to put pressure on them to stop doing genocide because the crew will be caught up in it. And it's your fault for doing that. It's unbelievable.
For over a year, prisoners to a terrorist organization. But don't worry, guys. Hassan says they have no problem with them.
They're like, all right, we got...
Says terrorists. He doesn't actually explain to us what exactly makes them terrorists. The U.S. government says so is not a valid argument, by the way.
No, we got no problems with you, you know, but you're coming with us.
You are so unfunny.
This is a 3-minute video of... What do you mean music video? When you say music video, I'm expecting like...
Oh my god.
Are you being serious? I know they're singing, but I'm seeing these guns and shit. This isn't a music video, Hassan.
You spent 2 months on this?
I bet Hassan's friend really appreciated being fed terrorist propaganda on camera. Let's see what he had to say.
Hell, even a couple days ago, I was hanging out with my buddy Hassan, and this guy unironically put a terrorist propaganda music video on and then left.
Terrorist propaganda. I guess if this guy says that terrorist, that
and I was just like, and the thing is, like, in hindsight, it's hilarious, you know. But at the same time, I'm like, what is going on here? This is wild to me. Yeah. But like, I just like, he was like, yo.
I'd like to show you Ethan Klein. Actual terrorist propaganda. You have no leg to stand on if you think that if you're going to claim that the Houthis are terrorists for doing that, but you don't think that this is also terrorism. This is also terrorist propaganda.
That article was from an op-ed in the 1938 edition of Be the Oppressed. The Green Beret will be where the nation requires they be.
This is terrorist propaganda. This is also terrorist propaganda.
When each soldier drafts, they receive the spirit of the IDF.
Ethan Klein, is this terrorist propaganda? I want to see some standards here. Because if that is terrorist propaganda, then this is terrorist propaganda a billion fucking times over, dude. It's crazy. Like, these people do not analyze their beliefs. They don't think at all. I would love, like, Ethan would never dare speak to me, but if he talked to me, his wife would be proven to be a terrorist, even with his 5 little fucking minions googling for him in the background. They would get absolutely slaughtered, and he would come out looking like a total fucking moron for even trying to argue against it, which is why he doesn't.
They're such great dancers.
All that he can do is when he's in a situation that he controls a narrative, he throws out bad-sounding words and doesn't even try to explain why he's using them.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay. Wait, is that how it works? If you watch like a politics TikTok, you get recommended Hassan right after? Is that how it works? Bro, he's all over this page. That's crazy. Click it. Dude, Hassan be saying some wild stuff, man. So I don't know if we can.
Here's another incident of Hassan enjoying some Houthi propaganda.
How is this any different to the military propaganda of any other government? It's fucking insane how we're supposed to just take this as anything but that.
How can they not agree with the Houthis when this is the kind of music video that they're coming out with? They got a beautiful voice too. Yeah, Israel been real quiet since this dropped, dude. The fucking mixtape.
Oh, Hassan, my sweet, naive friend. You say that Jews don't sing and dance like that? Then what the fuck do you call this? That's right, bitch.
Okay, this is just embarrassing at this point. Oh my God, I gotta skip the unfunny joke parts.
Houthis been real quiet since this dropped, dude.
Fuck, man. You are not funny. Stop trying.
Now we come to our sweet, beautiful, cute little TikTok twink. This hairless young man is the fantasy of every tween and twix and all the boys and girls on TikTok. He's cute. He's got a mustache. He's a freedom fighter. Beautiful eyes. They call him Tim Houthi Chalamet because he's a Houthi.
Bro, are we about to have a Houthi rebel on stream? Yes, brother. What do you mean? Excuse me? Of course I'm about to have a... I'm a journalist, okay? This is journalism. It's so weird. It's so weird. Motherfuckers want journalism, and when I'm trying to do journalism, they go, why are you doing that? Bro, you are going to get banned. I think it would be ridiculous to do that.
Hassan now has the opportunity to express his journalist...
Okay, so the guy is not a Houthi. He clarified this after this. Hassan thought that he was not. Not that it would have been wrong for Hassan to bring on a Houthi to talk to, for multiple reasons. For one, the US government hadn't even declared, not that the US government's designation matters aside from legal consequences, but at this time, the US government had not declared them a terrorist organization. It only did so in retaliation for the anti-Israel blockade. Like, literally, that's the only reason they did it. Just geopolitical weaponization of the terrorism list, obviously. Proving to you right there how fucking worthless it is. But the guy is not a Houthi. He's clarified multiple times, I am not a Houthi, I'm just a Yemeni citizen. So saying that Hassan said he was a Houthi, so that means he's a Houthi. People on TikTok call him a Houthi, so that means he's a Houthi. He's not. But if he was, it would still be fine to talk to him. Especially since Ethan has not even explained to us what exactly makes them terrorists. What terrorist attacks have they carried out? What is it? Aside from like Saudi Arabian articles about slavery.
Dick chops to get his boots on the ground and show us just how good of a reporter he can be.
I'm doing journalism, chat. Does he know what One Piece is?
He's been watching it since he was a kid.
The whole way!
The whole reason why he started asking him these dumb questions about anime is because during the interview, it came up that the guy wasn't actually a Houthi. You know, he was expecting to be able to talk to him about the situation in Yemen, about like the group's perspective and stuff. And then it turns out he's actually just a no one. He's just a kid. So it turned into a conversation with a Yemeni, basically, a random Yemeni 19-year-old. And yeah, he's treating him like a fucking human being. That bothers you, doesn't it, Ethan? It fucking hurts you when an Arab person is treated like a human instead of a fucking, like, innately anti-Semitic demon to be crushed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's sick. Yes, yes.
We love you too, man. Big time. Yeah.
I love you. I love you so much.
We're big fans of the Yemeni music videos. You can tell them that. I want to ask him about the knife. The knives are sick. What's up with the knives? You know, the curved knives.
If one of those knives comes
He's asking a Yemeni man about Yemeni culture.
out in front of you, it's not going back until it has blood on it.
Oh, okay. My bad. Well, I mean, I think it's cool, though. That's so crazy. So they're just chilling with the captains? Like, I don't understand.
The crews on these ships, and they like win them over with their charm, and they make them hate America and the U.S. government.
That's so funny. I'm a journalist, okay? This is journalism. It's so weird. It's so weird. Motherfuckers want journalism, and when I'm trying to do journalism, they go, why are you doing that?
Ethan Klein has two strategies. Flash headline on screen, act like it proves what I said, when half the time the headline contradicts him or is just fake bullshit. Play clip, act like it's self-evidently bad without explaining how it's bad. Wow, incredible, dude.
What do you mean? I'm just chilling. We're just having we're just vibing. Yeah, we're just vibing. We're vibing big time.
Hassan uncritically interviewed this kid for about an hour. It was the most brazen display of disgusting terrorist propaganda that I have.
What the fuck, dude? You have done nothing to show that this kid is a terrorist or that the Houthis are
maybe ever seen in Western media.
Which is
what has happened
to with the Houthis?
Does he know what has happened to any of the crews? Like I heard they.
Hassan almost asked a good question, but it's actually leading to the most obscene part of this interview.
He's saying he hasn't spent much time with Chinese people, but one of the captain was Chinese, and he did caught with them, and he danced to music with them, and he was vibing. So he likes him, yeah.
So I mean, what? That's so crazy. So they're just chilling with the captains? Like I don't understand.
Ask yourself, why is he able to hang out with the captain and the crew of this pirated ship? Why would he?
Ask yourself. He didn't. He fucking didn't. There is not a single Chinese captain. No captains of any of the captured ships, any of the crew were Chinese. This is just bullshit. This was debunked literally months ago. What actually happened is that this guy mistranslated what he was saying. Multiple Arabic speakers said, he said he's Yemeni. He never said that he was Houthi. And he said that the Houthis were Yemeni, not that he is Houthi, okay? That's one thing. Ethan claims that this guy hijacked the Galaxy Leader, which, just to be clear, it would be good if he had done that. God bless him if he had done that for Palestine. God bless him if he had helped to carry out a blockade for Palestine. But unfortunately, he had not. What actually happened is that this guy, at most, paid as a civilian to go to the Galaxy Leader, which was turned into a tourist attraction that anyone could pay to tour. Without the crew there, obviously, as you can see. That's what happened. Here's a video of like a crowd of tourists boarding the ship. Man, I would not want to go up that ladder. Fuck, man. But anyway, as you can see, this is tourists boarding the ship. Rashid never met the crew. What he did see was he saw a TikTok of a couple of Asian-seeming people, which was falsely captioned as the captain of the Galaxy Leader. This is not the captain of the Galaxy Leader. The captain of the Galaxy Leader is not Chinese, so none of the captains are Chinese. The captain of the Galaxy Leader is Bulgarian. Here is a video of the Galaxy Leader captain being released. He looks nothing. He doesn't even look Chinese. Look at him. That's him. Does that guy look Chinese to you? No, he's not. This is a 19-year-old kid who was mistranslated as having participated in these hijackings himself when he had not, as having met the crew himself when he had not. If anything, he lied and embellished and pretended that he had met the crew for the sake of an interview because he's fucking 19 years old, when what he had done was he saw a TikTok that had nothing to do with the hijackings anyway, of just an Asian-looking man like doing Yemeni stuff with Yemenis. That's all. This was shown months ago. This is from October. Ethan Klein knows this. He chooses to ignore it to falsely present this guy as a member of the Houthis and a terrorist, which even if he had participated in these hijackings, he wouldn't be a terrorist. In fact, he'd be a fucking hero. It's not terrorism to participate in a blockade designed to put pressure on a country and its allies committing genocide. Give us a fucking break, dude.
He even have access to that. Hassan knows why. Of course, he is a Houthi terrorist. Instead of...
He is a Houthi terrorist. You are just... Everything you're saying here is incorrect.
Challenging him and demanding more details about these kidnapped and missing people. He just runs defense for this guy, acting like he doesn't know why that would even happen.
He's saying that they win over the crews on these ships, and they like win them over with their charm, and they make them hate America and the U.S. government.
Like, he just takes everything this guy is saying as if it's coming from him and his own personal participation.
That's so funny. It is super funny, the idea of kidnapped crew members who are being forced, probably at gunpoint, to do some death to Americas and maybe some curse upon the Jews. And
he's just making shit up now. That never happened.
And frankly, the callous disregard for the well-being of the literal hostages.
Oh my God, why are you pretending you give a shit about any of this, dude? You don't fucking care about this. You just care about covering for Israeli genocide. Just give us a fucking break. Liberate yourself from having to lie so much and just tell us what you really believe. It would be such a weight off your chest, Ethan Klein. Anyway, so let us analyze the actual facts here and determine who is and who isn't a terrorist. Rashid Al-Khalidi, the Houthi guy who Ethan is slandering and defaming here, not even a member of the Houthi organization, not that the Houthi organization are terrorists, certainly not by the standards that Ethan used here or the evidence that he provided here. No evidence that he has ever participated in anything that can even remotely be construed as a terrorist action. No evidence of membership in anything that even remotely can be construed as a terrorist organization. What has he done? Posted tweets about killing Zionists. He went on a tour of a captured ship. That's really about it. He's also Arab. I guess we can't forget that. That's a really big thing for Ethan Klein. He's also Arab. We can't forget that. Now, okay, let's compare that to Gila Klein. As we went over earlier at the beginning of this, Gila Klein joined the IDF. Now, you can say that she was conscripted. I mean, that's a bullshit excuse. I don't think any of you who use that excuse would say that someone who was conscripted into ISIS is not a terrorist. But okay, let's accept that. But okay, let's accept that anyway. Well, she had a desk job like in Tel Aviv, far from the front line, but she found that boring. She found her little she job in the terrorist organization, the IDF, boring. So she asked them to transfer her to a job where she was way more connected to the actual terrorism. She asked them to transfer her to the West Bank. She got her wish. She was transferred to the West Bank, where she became a crucial logistical and organizational employee under the regional commander in charge of terrorizing the Palestinian people of Ramallah. There, she even volunteered to go on a raid because she wanted to see firsthand the terrorism of the organization that she was a part of. Let's ask questions here, crucially important questions. Would Ethan Klein consider by his standards that like a member of like the Houthi military wing, who like was a secretary who did crucial work to enable their military operations, as Gila Klein did, would he say that person is not a terrorist? He would not. He would think they're a terrorist. So by like any reasonable standard, and by Ethan Klein's own standards, Gila Klein should absolutely be a terrorist. The IDF is the world's #1 terrorist organization by a fucking country mile. They carry out way more terrorism than any other organization. She does not have the excuse of just being conscripted because she specifically asked to get closer to the action in this case being terrorism. She also doesn't have the excuse of just not being combatant because obviously it's not only the combatants who are terrorists. You know, ISIS needs secretaries, and the IDF is way worse than ISIS.
So let's just summarize our findings here regarding who is and who is not a terrorist.
Rashid, no proof of membership in any remotely terrorist organization. No proof of participation in anything remotely considerable terrorist actions. Is Arab. Ethan Klein says he's a terrorist. Gila Klein, confirmed member of IDF terrorist organization. Found her role in terrorist organization not exciting enough. Asked for transfer to area closer to terrorist attacks against victims. Volunteered to participate in terrorist attack where hostages were taken. Is Israeli. Ethan Klein says she's not a terrorist. Now, I don't want to make any accusations of racism or anything here. You know, I don't want to accuse Ethan Klein of being a racist. Ethan Klein is a racist. Obviously, if any of these two people is a terrorist, it's Gila Klein 1,000 times over. She's a confirmed member of a terrorist organization. She has been confirmed to have volunteered to go on a terrorist raid where hostages were taken by the terrorist group. And for the other guy, there's no evidence of anything ever remotely approximating that. The only really deciding factor here that Ethan Klein could possibly be using to determine that Gila isn't a terrorist and Rashid is that he's an Arab. So we'll just assume that that is his standard. Arab equals terrorist, Israeli equals not terrorist. It's that simple. And even if the claims that he's making about him were true, he wouldn't be a terrorist. It's a heroic thing to carry out a blockade against a genocide, especially for Yemen. Like, Yemen is such a destroyed and downtrodden country. It is embarrassing to all of us that one of the countries that have done the most to fight the genocide in Gaza is a country that has just barely escaped a Saudi American-Israeli genocide that has lasted a decade, in which around 400,000 people were murdered. It's insane, absolutely insane, that those people have done more than the rest of us. And it's even more insane that dickhead scum like this denigrates them for it while claiming to be pro-Palestine. This guy has never seen a pro-Palestinian action that he was not against.
Shocking, even for somebody that loves terrorists.
That's so funny. Is there a KFC there? They're everywhere. I don't think there's a KFC in Yemen, dog.
Pure editorializing, construction of narrative, really shitty narrative as well. No evidence, no facts, pure narrative. He's not even good at it either. This guy's just, I don't know, how is he famous, man? Honestly.
He says they have two.
Oh, they do have KFC in Yemen? That's crazy. Okay, that's sick.
Is there
asking a Yemeni about Yemen? How dare you be curious about an Arab Muslim country? You're treating him like a person. Ethan Klein can't have that.
KFC in Yemen?
No way, dude! Holy fuck! There's a KFC in Yemen! He's just like us!
I'm sure there's clips of like Ethan Klein talking about what Israel is like, not understanding the irony. When his wife is a literal fucking terrorist and Israel itself is basically one big, never-ending terrorist attack. Fucking hypocritical piece of shit moron.
Does he know what One Piece is?
I would have he's been watching it since he was a kid.
No way! Yeah. That's sick. Yes, that's fire.
So just Ethan Klein angry that an Arab is being treated, a random Arab civilian is being treated as a human being. It's insane.
So fire. Oh my God. We think the Houthis, Ansar Allah, is doing what Luffy would do. You should tell him that.
You guys all remember Luffy's flag, right? Now, I'm only halfway through that show, so maybe I just haven't come to it yet. But I do not remember Luffy's flag looking like this.
That's the ISIS flag. The Houthis fought against ISIS, you dumb motherfucker.
Predictably, there was some blowback after this interview, and Hassan went immediately into damage.
American imperialists and Zionists like you who just want to delegitimize anything that is even remotely pro-Palestine because you support genocide.
Control to rewrite history.
He said that he was just simply a Yemeni person and not a Houthi. Yeah, I mean, we don't even know if he's a Houthi or not. He's a teenager in Yemen. The dude is neither a Houthi nor a terrorist.
Dude, you are just lying. He said that he's not. And why should we not take his word for that when you have presented no evidence otherwise? Like, dude, this is from fucking February 2024 and you're still saying this. This was clarified long before you even said
Nor a pirate is not a Houthi rebel. They didn't fucking call him a Houthi either.
It's so painful to watch him act like this is such an epic gotcha when he's just plain fucking wrong.
You want to know why? Because he's not one. He's not a Houthi himself. He's not a pirate, but, you know, I don't think he's not a pirate. He has reiterated the position that he is not a Houthi. Trust me, bro, I'm not Houthi. Be for real. You sucked him off the entire stream. Not even a Houthi militant or anything like that. When I interviewed the dude, who they still to this day call a Houthi terrorist, Tim Houthi's not even a fucking Houthi. I thought he wasn't a Houthi because he's not. No, he was just some fucking Yemeni TikToker. Random fucking.
It's insane. He has not shown any evidence that the guy is who he says he is, Ethan. He's just playing this as if it's self-evidently wrong. As I said, play clips as if they're self-evidently wrong, do not explain how or provide any evidence how they are, and just pop up random headlines in the screen.
Yemeni teenager. Didn't you brand it as him being a Houthi interview, though? Bro, are we about to have a Houthi rebel on stream? Yes,
yeah,
brother.
He was wrong.
What do you mean?
He was wrong. And he should. I wish he was a fucking Houthi, man. It would have been cooler, way better. Obviously, people interview, like even people from actual terrorist organizations like the IDF all the time. Do you think that should be illegal or something? I don't understand.
All right, let's just take Hassan's word for it and assume, okay, this kid is not a Houthi rebel. He's just some ordinary...
Oh, man. Okay, let's try it. Let's see how well you do here.
Yemen teenager. Let's go ahead and take a look at his social media and see if that lines up. All right, let's see here. Tel Aviv will burn in the coming hours.
That's really funny. It's like an AI-generated image saying Tel Aviv will burn in the coming hours and just like fire. It's the funniest thing about that is especially like it includes Gaza and the West Bank. How can you take that seriously? Like if you saw like a 19-year-old Ukrainian post a picture saying Russia will burn in the coming hours and it's like an AI-generated picture of like all of Russia on fire, would you take that seriously? Would you be like, holy shit, this is proof that this guy is a terrorist? That's not what a terrorist is. Posting tweets, you by definition, cannot be a terrorist by posting tweets. There has to be more to it. Ready for sacrifice and eager for martyrdom. What's wrong with that?
Ready for sacrifice?
Okay, so you can't understand being willing to sacrifice yourself for a cause that's bigger than you, but that's bigger than you, like the genocide of Palestinians. I guess you can't imagine that.
Eager for martyrdom.
This guy just sees words like sacrifice, martyrdom. He's like Arab terrorist.
Maybe he's talking about football. Here he is singing a song with the words, "Do you threaten us with what we are waiting for, son of a Jew?" Meaning of Houthi is
that's like the one best thing that he has about him. As I said earlier, in the context of these countries that are literally terrorized by fucking Israel, what do you expect their population to think a Jew is? The only Jews they even know of is like Israel says it's Jewish and it terrorizes them and others. What the fuck do you expect, dude? If you're against anti-Semitism so much, you should be against Israel.
Title, and it's not something to fear, but for the Jews. They are very...
Even if we were to take these social media tweets at face value, even if we were to accept this guy is like a born anti-Semite, like he holds up the protocols of the elders of Zion and he loves Adolf Hitler. Let's assume that. Hassan is not responsible for his social media post that he posted after the interview. There's fuck all to do with it. That's even aside from the analysis of like why would people in the Middle East downtrodden by fucking Saudi American Israeli imperialism hate Israel? Why would they associate the word Jewish with Israel? You don't even analyze that. You're not incapable of analyzing that. You're too fucking stupid.
Afraid of this title. The execution we will carry out on all Zionists with the lovely depiction of a man
Zionists, not Jews. You see how he has to change words sometimes?
impaled through his asshole and out of his mouth with a pike. Or
so would it be wrong to say this is the execution we would carry out on all Nazis? Would he be against that as well? I don't think he would. These are both abhorrent ethno-nationalist genocidal political ideologies.
Don likes to say it, a pike for a cup. Okay, why would he retweet this article called Houthis use social media to boost global prominence and support? Israel falls. Wait for the new operation in Tel Aviv, the Jaffa drone, which knows
he retweeted an article?
Israeli defense can stop. The ships we bombed and sank. I know the red arrow is supposed to be a cool military Hamas thing. This is a butt plug. Just saying. To every
That's very funny.
Zionist, I will put this into your stomach. And let me state the...
None of this is wrong for him to post. Good on him. I hate Zionists too.
Zionist is clearly interchangeable to this guy. Oh.
It's interchangeable to you. It's interchangeable to you. You have to change it. This guy is clarified. By the way, he shouldn't have to, because it's expected that people who the only thing that they know about Jews is that Israel claims to be Jewish, claims to represent Jews while massacring people in the name of Jews, or at least saying in the name of Jews, rather. So that a guy like this does not know. He's not enlightened on the difference between Zionist and Jew when he's a fucking 19-year-old from Yemen who spent most of his life in a country ravaged by Saudi American Israeli imperialism, one of the most poor countries in the world as a result of that he did not know how to differentiate between Jew and Zionist. Like, that is literally like the definition of woke scolding. If there's ever a better usage of that term, it's here. Like, of fucking course he's not going to be so enlightened to know the difference, you dumb fuck. But you know what? He's learned from the experience. He's posted. Like, he's clarified that he knows the difference between a Jew and a Zionist now. I do not hate Jews. I hate every Zionist who kills children. Even if he is Muslim and does what Israel does, we will all be against him. The Zionist tries to hide behind the Christian or the Jew, the innocent. We understand everything. There are Jews who are with us and there are Christians with us. When we say Zionist, we do not mean the Jew or the innocent Christian. We mean the ones who kills children. So yes, this is a 19-year-old who has learned the distinction between Jew and Zionist as a result of him engaging with people all around the world. And what's more than what we can say for Ethan Klein? You should be ashamed that a poor 19-year-old in a country ravaged by Saudi, Israeli, American genocide for the last decade can do this, but you can't. We should not expect him to know this stuff. We should not expect some random teenager from the poorest country in the world to be able to meaningfully distinguish between Jew and Zionist when Israel claims that those two things are the same all the time, when that's all that he knows about Jews. It's fucking ludicrous that you do. There's a great article by this in the Palestinian context by Mohammed Al-Kurd, which also applies to the wider Middle East as well. It's called Jewish Settlers Stole My House. It's not my fault they're Jewish. Google it and it'll show up. It's about this bullshit weaponization of anti-Semitism against people who are victimized by Israel and you take it at its word when it says that it's Jewish. As he says here, I'm tired of the pearl-clutching pretense that should such animosity exist, its existence would be inexplicable and rootless, because obviously it can be explained by this linkage between Israel saying we're doing these horrible acts in the name of Jews, and people seeing that and taking them at their word. And most of all, I'm tired of the false equivalence between semantic violence and systemic violence. That's what Ethan Klein is doing here. He's like, look at this guy, right? This guy, he uses words wrong. He's a 19-year-old who doesn't know the difference between Jew and Zionist. Oof, what a terrorist. Like, equating, like, terroristic violence with someone posting on social media a song which says son of a Jew. Israel is a country that massacres Palestinians, that genocides them while saying we're doing this in the name of Jews. We're doing this for Jewish people. We're doing this in the name of Jewishness. As someone who is supposedly against anti-Semitism, that should cause you infinitely more worry than a 19-year-old Yemeni taking that country at its word. And it's disgusting that you're too fucking stupid and callous to notice this stuff.
Okay, but hating Jews doesn't make you a Houthi. Are you a soldier? Yes. That seems pretty definitive. You know what makes you
a random fucking response to a comment on Instagram?
A Houthi? Being a Houthi. At least one of the two of them is being honest about it.
So it's obviously totally ridiculous that Ethan just completely ignores like 5 different tweets and videos from this Yemeni kid where he clarifies very clearly that he is not a member of the Houthis and he is not a military guy or a soldier of any form and just a civilian. Instead, he just shows a response to an Instagram comment in a language that he doesn't speak, where he gave a one-word reply. That obviously does not outweigh the other times where he clarified this in detail. And Ethan had to skirt around that and not even show his audience it, because obviously he knew that if he did, they'd be like, well, that Instagram comment comment is not better evidence than all the other times that he talked about this in detail. It's pure intentional manipulation and lying. It's slimy as hell, and I mean, it's Ethan Klein, so what do you expect? But anyway, so guess what? What if I told you that Ethan Klein has outright said that Hila Klein was a soldier and not a secretary? What if I told you that using Ethan's own standards, we can say that Hila Klein was not just a secretary in the IDF terrorist group, but a soldier? Because Ethan himself has said that before. Here's a nice little clip where Ethan outright says so. Here's a nice little clip where Ethan outright says so back before it became inconvenient for him to admit it. Back before he realized, maybe it's not actually a positive thing to have been in a terrorist group, and maybe I should start saying she was a secretary instead.
Sort of spring break.
I fucked like crazy, dude.
What was your experience?
No, I met Hila there.
I know. I was gonna say your experience was a little bit different.
I was a young kid, dude. I was out there. It was my first trip out by myself. And Hila was a soldier in the Israeli army.
Dude, Hila was a soldier in the Israeli army. By Ethan's standards, this is like incredible, dispositive, irrefutable evidence. So we're going to go along with it. Hila was irrefutably a soldier in the Israeli army. If that Instagram post by Rashid is like smoking gun evidence of him being a Houthi soldier, then this is smoking gun evidence of Hila being an IDF terrorist soldier. But wait, there's more. Hila has not been entirely forthcoming about her actual role in the IDF. She was a member of the Kafir battalion, which she transferred to. Remember, she had a nice desk job in Tel Aviv, but she found it boring, so she decided to transfer to an actual combat battalion that terrorizes Palestinians in the West Bank, and that was this Kafir battalion. You can see here that Hila Klein has the Kafir battalion beret. How do you get the beret? Very simple. You do 8 months of combat training. As it says here, Kafir recruits must complete 8 months of combat training in order to be received into active service. So, Hila Klein was not simply a secretary, right? Like, she was not just on the base as a secretary with no combat training, nothing whatsoever. No. She underwent 8 months of training in a terrorist training camp. So Ethan Klein acknowledges that she was a soldier. Outright, he said that she's a soldier, and given the